open the public session at 7:12, and we'll open it with the pledge of allegiance. If everyone could join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as we do at every meeting, I will read the governor's information for everybody. And as a preliminary matter, I am Krista Silva, the chair of the Maynard Select Board. And please, there is nobody online from the town or the board, so I don't need to check them. But this meeting is being conducted via Zoom and live, a hybrid meeting. And speakers on the agenda, some speakers on the agenda will be participating remotely. And the chair may allow for the public to provide comment as well. The Select Board would like to hear public comments, and if there's further action that is required by the board, the chair will add the matter as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, the board may, if they're able within the confines of the opening meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, this meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast to individual attendees unless otherwise required by law. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, so please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All of the materials for this evening's meeting are on board docs, except any executive session materials. And we recommend the members and the public follow the agenda as posted on board docs unless otherwise noted. We will now turn to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda, and after they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking and address as well. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comments, after the members have spoken, the chair may afford public comment as follows. We will first ask the members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. And once we have a list of all public commenters, we will call on them each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Public comment for public hearings will only be accepted in person per open meeting law. Now we will get to the first item on the agenda, which is public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening in the room? Do we have any public comments online? Okay, seeing no public comments or hands raised, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is our consent agenda. Tonight, there are 2 items, A and B. Does anybody want to make a motion for A?
Well, Mr. Chair, I can.
Yeah.
For the information report. Say what you're about to say, but I think I was going to ask you.
Oh, yeah, no, I put in some notes, under consent agenda item A, for Pro Park, under Brigade Baseball. The original dates, that were originally sent, have been expanded upon. I did an update in board docs this afternoon when they came through. So the original ask had practices on Wednesdays and games on Saturdays. But now this updated request has been included, has been updated to include Monday through Friday practices 4 to 7 p.m. and then games Saturdays and Sundays 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and they listed all the individual dates in board.
Greg, did we also get any word, and my computer's taking forever to upload, but did we get any word on a deconfliction between the 6th and the 23rd?
Yes, so September 23rd originally was conflicting with the consent agenda item B for Pearl Park, was for the Fowler PTO event, but that's no longer an issue. September 23rd, it was taken out of the baseball request. So September 23rd is free for the Fowler PTO event. And I also do have the applicant is here as well.
Are you Arthur? Yes, okay, great.
I definitely have questions, but I don't know if you want to move it first and then we have to there.
Yeah, I would suggest we move it and then we'll talk to Arthur.
So I will move to approve consent items A and B as presented, contingent upon adherence to all federal, state, and local public health and safety guidance, authorizing use of digital signatures. If approved.
Okay, so we-
I second.
All right, so we have a second. By the way, thank you for working out the scheduling conflict with the PTO. Eases up my emails considerably. So anyways, does anybody have any questions for?
I do have a question and I don't know, and I'm kind of putting Greg Wilson on the spot with this. I'm a little concerned about putting our fields, committing our fields for the next 3 months, Monday through Friday. Is there, historically, if we had other groups that want to use them?
Don't know about historically.
I know,
Yeah, because I haven't been here for a full cycle through yet.
Right.
But I do know that the brigade does encompass some other groups. Forget the acronym, but the AMSA is also included. But yeah, and I actually don't have any historic, I didn't have access to the calendar historically to see. So, can't really speak.
I think mentioned that we're flexible. We just wanted to have, because there's a number of, big planning from communities, more and more interested in other than that much. So we're not trying to canvas the whole thing, but we're trying to get a little, legal for the, and then there's a high school now involved, and then there's that, so we will coordinate with all the guys, so you don't have to. And we'll go back and forth for the baseball. Now, if there's other event, obviously we're going to set aside and work something out, like we did with the phone card. We just said, okay, we'll pick one of the field, because we have so much.
So are you, so forgive me for not knowing, so Brigade Baseball is. So is that a Maynard organization?
No, I don't believe it is.
Okay,
But all the kids that are half of the kids that participated, that remained.
okay, all right,
That's the field that was just.
Yeah.
So they moved, for our sake, they moved over remainder instead of
Okay.
being out in Leominster. I believe that's what brigade is, even if the convention also was using the field right here in the hall. So the ball isn't as popular, but it's becoming more popular. And same with the students with that, I heard that this will also be involved as well in this field. So we'll just coordinate with them.
What,
I think there'll be 4 groups involved in this.
and who, so, and forgive me, so who's going to, so. And I appreciate that you say that you'll organize it, but I feel like. Some town staff should have some kind of organization of multiple,
Somewhat, except we don't have a recreation director. And that field being that it under the first group of select board doesn't fall into the athletic department of the high school. I think so my thoughts are that, Arthur here is sort of signing on behalf of these other groups. So let's say there was a needs to be sort of use of the field by the Eagles. I don't know. I'm not calling the Eagles, calling him because it's his name on the license. And it is certificate of insurance that has to cover those other groups. So he's taking on a certain liability and responsibility. And if he wants so big, the town doesn't have a policy against it. I understand like a concern for monopolization of that town resource. However, in this case, it sounds like it is sort of being spread and they're being welcoming to these others. So I'm not sure what sort of like administrative resistance we could give. But I understand your points.
what is brigade baseball? Like, where does it fall? I mean, Little League, Babe Ruth, Where is it in that progression?
Parallel debate. There's parallel validity, so there's organizations that are independent and they're for profit. I'm just not participating, just as an assistant, maybe as a coach, as a father. And so these guys want to use the fields, and since a good chunk of the kids are here, they just need to be properly admitted to the field. The thing is, nobody has stepped up yet to try to move forward. So if my name bears it, they're gonna get all fair participation. Now, if there's other events, rest assured, if there's any problems, you'll call either me or whoever. There's also school craft.
Yeah.
And he's the co-head for the Show High School. And so he's asked me to come in and coordinate it. So there's a couple of people that you can hold responsible for this, and the coordination rest. And if anyone else steps up, then we're more than welcome, because we're not gonna use the field all the time. We will have it on Wednesday, but we put it to other teams, knowing that they'll probably practice alternate days. So we'll rotate. We're not trying to hug the field, we just know that there's a number. I didn't know that until tonight that there was high school participation as well. Thank you for letting me, just before I arrived, there's also high school that participate, and they were asking, hey, you got the field for this, what even going on? Because we're not funding it. You're welcome to use it along with us, we'll just need it for like a Saturday here and one practice on this. And then the other organization and Eagles, well, people will just slot in and we'll coordinate who's available and who's not. Do you want to?
I can help explain too, because in my spot as a resident and through both my sons play ball, it's club ball. You know,
Okay.
and basically, you know, people who are gonna play high school ball and that, they can get hone their skills better because they play in more leagues, more this, and they play with a more elite group. Because they have coordinated with other teams, the Eagles, who usually rent it out. They're playing there on a regular basis with games, and they answer, it was one of them. I just got to schedule for my 13-year-old, he's going in. So if there are many kids that play in it, a lot of that, like, and so kids, which are so kids.
Greg, we're not aware of any other, with Dustin, any other group that normally uses the field during this time.
I'll let you know, just a minute, because I just found out.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned is, are we forgetting about anybody else right now?
Why was the thought, I was like, okay, well, then put in the high school coach as well.
I mean, so admittedly, I'm reliant on like the administration staff, it's just schedule, we just kind of make sure, we have like a calendar, we just make sure that they're all
Right.
on top of like. I would be surprised if it's September, so I can't imagine there's not many more groups or suddenly we're gonna be surprised with getting applications.
I don't think so, and I just don't have, I unfortunately don't have the old calendar, without, just through old agendas and things like that.
Okay,
If you can call me anytime, then I'll let you know how things are going.
yes, Justin.
Hi, Justin Martin, DPW Director. So my only concern is just based off of usage and the use of the field. So currently, right now, we don't have staff, so it's really, what's your expectation level of the field? Currently, the Eagles actually maintain the field themselves as they're not trying to permit it. There's an increase in use, which means there's going to be an increase in damage. And that damage isn't necessarily like over, like fence damage, things of that nature, but you're talking about infield crawling, our staff isn't capable of providing any more services. So just for the board's purpose, understanding that that use pattern may result in an inferior product moving down the line unless you and your staff is going to maintain that field that the Eagles have in the past. So just what's the expectation level of field and what's the expectation of the
What-
conditions?
When you say maintain, Justin, what does that
Fine
suggest?
things. So when you use a field in excessive rate, you're talking increased compaction, which will have die off of grass. When you're talking about baseball, softball, you have extreme use in infields, which will create divots and ditches. Our staff is already maxed out at all of our athletic fields, which sometimes you see in Facebook posts of inferior field conditions. That is a direct correlation to excessive use. So I'm not saying not to, But just understand that as we continually turn out our fields with increased usage compared to the Eagles, our staff is not capable of providing more service.
Well, that raises the question then, which I was going to ask, about, we don't have a fee. Should we have a fee? And I'm not saying we implement it tonight because that's not fair. But should we, going forward, have a fee? So at least some basic, we're recouping some, not only the maintenance of the field, just the fact that we have an asset that's being used by some folks from outside of our town. And do other communities charge for that type of usage? And if they do, then why aren't we in the game too?
We could do research, I know.
Hmm?
We could, to your question, I have a valid question, of course, and we asked for sort of like fee reviews for every other department.
Yeah.
Like we licensing, et cetera, so it's not a bad.
Well, I love the idea of having the kids and the families here playing baseball in Maynard, because it brings attention to our community. People say, hey, we have to go out for lunch between games, it's a place to go. They learn about what we've got, et cetera, et cetera. So I think from an economic development standpoint, it's a wonderful thing, and I encourage it. I just wonder if we're being too generous with the asset itself, and if we should, and that's just a thought for the future. Not something.
Didn't, we did have, I know, I'll give credit where credit is due. There is a plan that we were presented probably 2 years ago now. About field use and fees and things like that.
Regulation.
Rules and regulations and-
It's some pushback from various public members.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So, the other thing I want to point out real quick is that, just doing a quick search, and this does concern me a little bit, is, last year at this time, and granted, we haven't seen them yet, but last year at this time, the Boys and Girls Club wanted Pro Park on Saturdays in September and October for soccer tots. And I don't,
We don't have a policy to, so I don't have a
Yeah.
policy to deny applications because it might be another application. coming.
right,
And we're first come, first served, so.
Yeah. okay, just let me know.
It has
Wanna talk to that guy?
Typically, that's how you can, so if you talk about how you weigh the fees. So large urban communities typically charge a set fee because they maintain it off of its.
you have like a pilot payment in lieu of.
But it's a really huge fee typically. What we've always had in the past, and that's actually why in some of my comments, I believe we thought people were hundreds of Eagles. Now, it's a combination. The Eagles have volunteered their services and we. Our policy currently, which we don't really have a policy, that you leave it as a founder. So it's one of those situations where maintenance is definitely allowable, volunteerism can be discussed. It's done throughout several communities. From small towns to large cities, seen Douglas be built on volunteerism and lack of permits, there's a number of ways to put that. I think that's something for the board to consider on what that expectation is. Part of the reason I brought it up wasn't to discourage or encourage, it's more of the fact that we do get concerns from residents who use it passively that the field was not up to expectation. But the direct correlation is how much we utilize that field and what is excessive activity. So if a resident just walked there to go play ball with their son and or their daughter, and they come across a field that was just used on a Saturday, they're not even gonna be there till Monday. We received 1,000 complaints with a high deer and expectation level here. It's just one of those situations where to curb that expectation.
I'm just asking, like, I'm trying to do some stuff with the very good people. And you can't touch it without going through. The board asked the question, so I'm like, okay, when I wanted to think over some stuff, I wanted to fix something, but even like.
So that-
They're interested in doing it, or they're not.
Yeah.
So this is the good place to be, your native.
Just in mind. We can give you the email on all of it.
That's great, getting it done in one sitting. Yeah, we don't have a problem with doing it cleaned up. And, I coached, I actually coached Bay Blue for the spring and that's something like the summer. We pretty much had to keep it as clean. But we also have to fix the fence of the net that was paying. So there was other times, hey, we must fix it, did you yourself?
No, I don't.
That was about Mr. Moran. I was asking about it before, they didn't give me permission, and like, what do you mean, I can't let the net? So by the time we got around to it. I'm like, well, it's fine. But they weren't, I'm like, you guys did me to it, but it's great.
Some of it's liability, and then understanding that some fields are the permanent authority of the board, most of our athletic fields come to the school. So there's different policies and procedures to different.
That's why I'm getting at. By the time I get, when I want to paint some, paint that out. Time.
We can picture entire scope and we can approve.
Yeah, you two can work that out. You guys can work that out. All right,
All right, motion and
all
second.
right, so the motion a second, any further conversation, you guys can work that out. We don't need to hear about all that. conversation. Anybody else have any comments? All right, all in favor, Jeff,
Yes.
Justine,
Yes,
David,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Someone have a comment?
yeah, give your hand raised, because you're live.
Where?
No, you don't have to vote,
Oh.
roll call.
Oh, yeah, that's right, too. Okay, so no, that's right.
sorry,
All right,
all right,
all right, so that they both pass.
Good luck.
A and B, good luck. And you have Justin's card, so all those things you can work out, and if
Good luck.
there's any,
Thanks for
if
bringing
there's any
baseball.
conflicts, you'll probably hear from Greg. Or if there's anyone comes looking for an hour or two, it is in the things. All right. No, certainly, I mean, I know Greg and Greg both appreciate that working out with everyone else, without anybody else getting involved, so thank you for that. All right, the next item is, another town use for Brook Street.
That's right, Mr. Chair. So I think we're joined by Mr. Charles. Maybe he's on the phone.
Hello.
Hello. So, we had an application.
Are there two people speaking or one? Because you gotta go one at a time, because it's muffled in this room.
So we have, I'm joined by one of our producers, Robin, but I'll be the one speaking
Okay, thank
for
you.
now.
So they want to do a little bit of filming on Brook Street. And they have a particular set date and time. One question I have for the applicants. Did you guys reach out to any of the residents or butters?
Yeah, so actually there's a correction. I believe Brook Street was grabbed from an email, but on the application it is meant to be at on Lincoln Street. Right around the corner. Yeah, so the house that we are shooting, we have full permission, written permission, verbal permission from, actually, I believe the house is on either side of the street. In the small bit of road that we're looking for.
Okay. All right,
So additionally, Mr. Chair, we got their application today. So a little behind the eight ball, but Chief chimed in that a detail is expected. So are you familiar with the detail and sort of coordinating with the police department for that?
We are not, no. This is a first time process for us.
Okay.
so one. You want to explain it to them?
So you'll need to reach out to the police department. Is there someone that?
You can send me an email.
Okay, so if you go to the town's website and specifically the Maynard Police Department website, you'll find contact information for the chief. Chief Noble, and he can forward it to. To coordinate the detail, but there's a cost associated with that, so you have to work that with them.
Understood.
so the one question I had earlier when the other application, or when the initial application came in, you were gonna film until about 10 o'clock at night, which that was the reason I had actually asked the question of whether or not you had notified the abutters and things like that.
Yeah.
And I see now that you've backed off to 8, but you're starting at 6 a.m, and I'm just curious, how loud will you be at, before 7 a.m. On a Saturday?
Yeah, so I put 6 a.m. because that's our call time for our casting crew to arrive and start setting up equipment. But we most likely won't be shooting until after 7, between 7 and 8. We have a relatively small crew. We're only shooting with one cast member that day. So I would say there's going to be approximately 10 people there. So I would say we will not be very loud or making actually any noise prior to 7:30.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask what type of a production this is? Is it a national production? Is it just a local?
Yeah, so it's we run a very small independent video production company. This is just something that we've been doing since, you know, just growing up and stuff like that, and we've just taken very recently we've established ourselves as an LLC. So it's a self-funded 13-page short film that's its intent is to be in submitted to film festivals.
Great. And why Maine, or just the location matched what you were looking for?
Yeah, well, Robin Glass, who's on the call with us as well, he lives on Brook Street, so he's right around the corner. So these are people that he's known, and so yeah, it's location close to all of us. It's something we were able to get in, and the house, you know, has our look.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, does
So
anybody-
I have a quick note about the dates. We had listed the 9th. Unfortunately, there's gonna be thunderstorms, it looks like, due to the equipment continuity and honestly the safety of having people out there. We're not sure if we're gonna be able to shoot this weekend. I listed the 17th as a rain date, but that is not a 100% definitive thing. That is just something we're working towards. And I'm not sure if that is an issue, but I thought something I should bring up.
Okay,
So you would have to come back to us if the rain date didn't work and
Yeah.
the original date didn't work. Just for a permit for the other days.
Yeah. So
No, I don't know how that affects the police, because if they've been, you know, assigned to do the work, it
You
might
have to
be
be
an issue.
within 2 hours prior, so
How much?
you can't, 2 hours,
2 hours.
otherwise they have to.
So
wait
you have,
4
you have to
hours.
advise the police department 2 hours beforehand if you're not gonna utilize the detail.
it would be well before that. It just the issue is that yeah, we would know well before we're shooting. It's just going to be after this meeting is all I mean,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
But
okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Are we
Yeah.
opening the motion
Go ahead.
contingent upon the police detail, or how are we gonna do this?
well, it's already in the motion. They have to abide by local public health and safety guidelines.
And that includes the,
It's required, the police said it's required. And we've said.
I'll move to approve use of Lincoln Street,
32 Lincoln.
32 Lincoln Street, thank you, by Youth Control for film production on Saturday, September 9th, 2023, from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. with a rain date of September 17th, 2023, contingent upon adherence to all federal, state, and local public health and safety guidelines, authorizing use of digital signatures that include.
Second,
Any further comment? All those in favor? Also easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, good luck.
You're looking for Police Chief Noble.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any details posted about what types of activities would require detail and how to contact your department to get that set up, or what the rate would be if somebody was interested but don't know if the rate's prohibited, having that posted somewhere?
I mean, we can put the rates on the website, we usually do, and there are different rates at different times, like weekend rates, compared to the weekday rate. Private versus public, like I don't do that. That might be a little detail.
Isn't there a minimum?
That's why we don't put it on, because somebody's gonna look at it and not factor in. Correctly. Plus it's-
they're gonna want the lowest number.
Is that?
They're gonna want the lowest number by default.
It should be, yeah, it's the time they want it, right? So if they want to move to a time that's less costly to do that, then that's should be part of their calculation.
Yeah, during a weekday would be much less expensive than.
All right, Greg, item number 6, appointments. We have 2 for the Green Meadow School Building Committee.
That's right, so, Mr. Chair, we received a recommendation from the building committee to have, 2 gentlemen appointed. Josh Morse and Ken Newhouser. Ken Newhouser had been participating in the, Green Meadow School Building Committee meetings as the liaison designated by the building committee. Mr. Morse, has been active in a number of topics, in my tenure here. Well respected, has a professional experience that really lends itself to the building committee. Participated in this evening building committee, a while ago.
So Ken Newhouser was already appointed, correct? He just wasn't a voting,
That is correct.
okay, but he was participating from, he's been participating for
Oh,
probably a year or so.
Yeah,
at least,
Yes, okay, all right.
yeah,
So they just want to make him a voting member now.
that's right.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, this is to appoint those 2 gentlemen, but it kind of goes hand in hand with a later action, which is to approve the list to be admitted to development.
all right. So, yes. The list, is the updated list going to include the changes that he asked for?
Yes.
We taking one off and put one on?
So he had, well, I'm just bringing it up right now to check, because I did this a lot. What came up at this evening's building committee meeting was to add Katie Moore as
Back.
So both Captain Stone and Katie Moore from the finance committee. It's not in 6A, but if you go, I did make that change to add Katie Moore as an unvoting finance committee liaison. And that's in 10A.
so they're both gonna be, Cabinet and Katie
Yeah,
are
the finance
both gonna
committee
be
assigned 2 people.
liaison?
Not voting. I don't know if I've seen both of them in the same meeting.
I don't see his name on anything.
But they were,
He's on,
if you go to 10A, it's.
No, but do we have to appoint him? No.
No, because he's assigned from the finance committee, who's appointed. by-
Okay, okay, all right.
Who was on the FinCom liaison before?
Katie.
Kate alone.
Oh, so we're just adding.
Cabinet.
I'm not sure who was there before Kate, but she's been alone.
Yeah.
He's gonna,
All right, do we have a motion? You guys to Ken and Josh.
I'll move to appoint Josh Morris and Ken Newhouser to the Green Meadow School Building Committee with a term expiring June 30th, 2026, and authorize the use of digital signatures if approved.
Okay, do we have any further discussion?
I'll thank Ken for the work he's done so far, and I think will be a good addition as a voting member, and I'll thank Josh as well. I know he's done a lot of work already, promoting the project on Facebook and brings a wealth of technical expertise from, direct experience from his day job as well. So thank you to both of these gentlemen for stepping on to the voting membership of this committee.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor? All right, thank you, Josh, and thank you, Ken. And I guess we're on to the CDEF grants.
gee, Chad and Calum.
So,
Mr.
Mr. Chair, a little bit of an introduction. So the town collects community impact payments through the agreement that we have with the marijuana,
Mhm.
recreational marijuana retail establishments, the 2 that we have in town. So they, through the host community agreements, they pay 3% of their revenue on top of the 3% of their sales tax to the town. It's all handled primarily from the Department of Revenue, but so we get those payments. Those are deposited, if you will, into a stabilization account and then transferred as we did last. I don't remember, I can't remember if it was last annual town meeting, but we transferred them into this cultural district campaign fund. All for in the spirit of transparency, just kind of make it known, like, this is where the money is and how it's going to be used for. And the town has an application process. If you want to use from that fund, the current balance for that CDEF fund is $132,000. So I think the board has received maybe 1 application in the past. So I'm encouraged to hear another application. And Bill's been working really closely with the Economic Development Committee. And Bill, what's your pitch?
Bill, I'm your planning director. This is no pitch, but it's we're proposing, first of all, replacement of some existing wayfinding signs and, accessories to mount them. But the biggest change, for wayfinding is that we're proposing, a new sign which will be located directly across from Maynard Crossings entrance or exit, in the vicinity of the stoplight, that's there currently. And the idea is that we will, hopefully provide a lot of our, users, Maynard Crossing, the opportunity to visit downtown. We've got a tremendous, potential to capture outside revenue. And, a lot of people that, that have been, spoken to, by members of the Economic Development Committee and others, at Maynard Crossing, have not very visited downtown Maynard. So this seemed like a good way to, enhance the presence of, the downtown and utilize or take advantage of the critical mass we have of customers at Maynard Crossing. Provided a memo that has the locations that are being upgraded. They're in various states of disrepair. Some of them have gone so far as to even we've lost the posts for them. I don't know exactly how that happened or why, but this is phase one of the wayfinding. We wanted to get something going, particularly as Maynard Crossing becomes more and more successful. We rolled the repairs into the existing grant for that purpose, so we can do it all at once. So if you have a little figure here I made, it's I believe here, there was beautiful locations. The graphics contain an illustration of basically what each sign will generally look at like. There may be some changing of the copy on there, but this is what we're proposing. Be similar to what's there, with the addition of the cultural district would be what would be added in there.
So, all right, so the ones that say replacing, what are they replacing?
It different locations, so.
Are these, so I guess the question is, are these the wayfinding signs we've already like paid for within the last 3, 4, 5 years?
No, it's before I got
So
here.
these are older?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
I do notice the one at over it, because I did look at the one at 117, 27 or 117. I didn't notice that it looked terrible. I don't really notice what the change would be. Just curious if you happen to know what. The only thing I can think of is that we added cultural district to it. Is that?
We added, I'm gonna. That's why my.
Put you on a hot spot.
Wasn't that the one? Wasn't that lacking, the one off in front of McDonald's? That was wrong, right?
No. Oh, that's what he said.
Yes, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, but it's-
They saying, but we would.
yeah.
If they're 4 consecutive or.
The same.
It's, we thought that one was particularly crucial because the location, again, it's seeming that if you've ever been mayor of downtown, you come here, okay, don't want anybody to miss out.
The other question I have, real quick, is the one that you're proposing for and exiting, 129 Parker. The one thing I feel bad about is there's a house there. So are we putting up another sign? Or are we gonna mount it on the sign, the traffic light? Or are we just putting another sign in their yard?
Well, the budget is for a new sign post.
Okay.
I have met with Justin, he's aware of where it's going. There, but then we're proposing that the sign company actually do the work that's for mounting this. So I would defer to whatever, if Justin wanted something like that, we would ask the sign company to.
Do you have any idea what the property owner? I guess that's. what
I guess that I think her point is if I'm sitting in my living room, I gotta look at the back of the sign. If that's my home.
that, I mean, I realize
Yeah,
you're
that's
looking
a
at two
question.
traffic poles, but you know. I
What
just
is,
looked
what
at
is
it
the
other
neighbor, what
day.
is the neighbor looking at?
Well, right now, they're looking at a number of, like I said, the arrow, I think there's an arrow there, there's a stoplight. I think there's an- So I appreciate that and I understand that. And that I believe is a right of way, and it is really a crucial place that would be the most visible. But no, the answer is no, I haven't spoken to the homeowner.
And just because it's a right of way doesn't make it right.
Well,
I mean,
if it
at
goes-
least, at least
if it goes
if it
on
was my
the
window.
existing, if it goes on the existing
Pole.
light sign, you know, where the street light is across the way,
Yeah.
or would it be effective to put it on the, see, you know, have some conversation with the developer and ask if we could put it inside their property. That basically says downtown.
How big is the sign, Justin?
Well, I'm actually only gonna comment on one thing. So the traffic lights are considered universal traffic control systems and only regulatory signage.
You go on there.
So you can't put it on,
It actually discourages the effects.
makes sense.
The sign is 39 by 24.
Yeah.
But right now, it's about going to where basically the lights are going straight into this house.
So we got a 3x2 sign coming out of a traffic intersection, mounted on a pole. And we think that's gonna be sufficient to get people to go downtown?
Linda, did you have something else?
I was just going to ask what the process was for putting it. Location. Any. Was made.
I don't think any of us are that old. Unfortunately, but okay. I don't know, I don't remember that.
Mount it right in, because I pulled up an image of it, you know, can we mount it possibly? I know you can't attach it to the sign, Can we mount it in front of it? Is
So
there?
we don't wanna block any of the digital signs, so if there are
No.
left-hand turns.
No, I
It will be under it.
I mean, under, like
So one
under,
in front of the post.
in front of the post, but under all of the
on a separate
faces,
post.
I guess.
As long as there's no, I'd have to just look at it and make sure there's no head signs there.
Yeah, all right.
Crosswalking it.
Does
Yeah,
that meet,
Yeah, it
Linda?
just can't be attached.
Okay, and Linda, does that still meet the intent of the Economic Development Committee? Or were you looking like between the two posts, or did you have, or Bill, did you guys have?
I think the idea is where, in general, it's visible to people exit.
Oh, we still want to
I
talk to
don't
the
think, you know, one
resident.
couple feet one or the other is gonna make a lot of difference. I, so far as putting it on, Maynard Crossing property, that's possible. I mean. You know, visibility wise. I would say it would be an improvement from not having a sign there for sure.
Oh, I don't mind having it actually across, you know, in the right of way. Right in front of, but not blocking any of the signage for the traffic lights. I just feel like having a traffic light, a sign and traffic light in this person's front yard is kind of. Especially without telling them. I need.
Do you want us to like kind of come back with you about maybe specific proposal about where it might go to sort of mitigate your concerns? Or you could approve this barring the installation of this particular sign until they come back, you know, they kind of come back to the board and show like where maybe more attractive location may be.
Well, I mean, I'm the one
Also, this is-
that's saying.
I agree with you 100%. You know, I think,
But I think that, I mean, I think we've kind of made our positions known on it.
Maybe.
right? So,
everything that somebody wants to do, the first question is, did you talk to the neighbors? And we're not gonna talk to neighbors ourselves. Doesn't make sense.
No, that's fair.
So I mean, I understand the point.
So I don't think we've had to improve tonight. So if you want, we can come back.
Well,
I mean, I don't have a problem approving it tonight, because I trust that if we have this conversation that Bill is gonna follow up and the EDC is gonna follow up and it's gonna be, you know, everyone's gonna end up being happy. I just think to Justine's point, I think it bears mentioning that, you know, we ought to consider the person who's
Okay.
living there, you know.
No, and I like it, I think it's, so let's say if I'm pulling it out of Mayor Crossing, I kind of already made up my mind whether I'm gonna make a left to go exact downtown, or I'm thinking right to go Sudbury. And if the sign's there, but I'm in the right hand lane, I can't read, can't make up my mind. So like, all I'm saying is, I'm already thinking, oh, I'm gonna talk to Bill about, maybe we can talk to Capital Group and get it. It's maybe not necessarily like a roundabout.
To me, it's
So that
that
before you made that commitment, you know, oh, downtown's that.
as I come down the street before I take the left, do I see it before I go in there and
Right.
then know it's, there's a potential to take a left on the way out.
Right.
You know, two signs, whatever, but yeah. All right,
I can do that. I can kind of see what we come up with and, see if there's an option that makes.
yes. Yes, sir.
Makes a little better. Is there regulation how far the sign? I mean, I agree with you. It's best to see it ahead of time.
Yeah.
And that should be in line with the.
So that would be more to the traffic regulations, which is very specific.
I don't-
And outside of that private property, then we can only do within the right of way, which is or whatever footage, you know.
Well, the concern in the private property is what we've told them they can't do.
Yeah, that's-
Are we gonna ask them to do something we've told them they can't do, which then we have to go back and start doing that again.
I think
Think,
that if there's a practical location at the exit, maybe we could come up with something there. I don't know how to accomplish this because of the entrance, you know, the location of it. I'm kind of at a loss for what we could do to capture that exiting traffic. You know, other than, like I said, placing it in front of one of the existing poles and lights, or putting it, if we found a place somewhere on the way out. You know, ask the developer if they do want to place it there. But I think given that the board's concerns, is probably the best thing to do, take a look at neighbor character. Not too long, I think it's that make it both more comfortable, because I hate to just get out and say, I don't know what else I can do with that particular.
I mean,
and so
I'm
we'll-
not opposed to it at all.
Oh, no,
I just, it's
yeah.
more,
Yeah.
you know, I just want to make sure, like, again,
Yeah.
the people, especially the people who are along that road have been through a lot with the redevelopment of that property. So I just kind of want to respect them as well. But I mean, even if for some reason, and I understand Greg's point, but even if for some reason you can't get it on the property, then maybe you do put it on the pole that's on the left hand, because that's where, that's the direction people will be going in, or not on the pole. Sorry, Jess.
Yes.
Under the pole,
all right,
front
so
of it, just next to it, whatever.
we don't have a motion for it, so we'll just come back again and just go walk through those questions.
Actually, we do have, a motion, but
No, did we make a motion?
we didn't make it.
We haven't made a motion.
We approve fractions and get started on the first
Yeah,
three that we.
would there be a benefit to moving it forward? Even if we exclude that one sign at this point, or?
Yeah.
Um,
I think so. I don't think there was like any cost disadvantage to doing it, you know, piece by piece, because they're individually made. So I could do the 3, 1, 2,
I mean, I don't think we have to change the motion. I just think we just have to, we have the understanding that there's a question and we'll just resolve the question before we stick a sign in it.
Right, we don't.
I
we don't-
gotta delay the whole thing.
Sign,
Everyone's in favor of it and we just have the understanding that we're gonna, that one sign is just there's a couple of concerns and they'll be resolved. Just, I mean,
whatever, whatever the board would like, I will do.
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
I'm okay with it. As is with, you know, and we just have the understanding within the room that that's what's gonna happen.
I mean, if I did, maybe the way to do it would be if I did, you know, if there was a location that was in the general vicinity, it was more appropriate. You know, I would just do it without, if you wanted to prove it, I could do it.
I don't think you need to come back
I'll bring it
and
back.
I think we trust you.
We can, we can record anyway, so in my tenor or something like that, we'll just show you.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
All right,
I'll move to approve, did we already make a motion?
no motion has been made.
We'll move to approve the application for the use of $7,418 from the cultural district enhancement fund CDEF by the Economic Development Committee. For a project to add and repair directional wayfinding signage to downtown and the cultural district as presented, and authorize the use of digital signatures if approved.
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
folks.
much.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Contracts,
there's a lot of.
a lot of contracts today. Who's up first? Chief Noble?
Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. Middlesex Chiefs of Police Association Mutual Aid Agreement.
Yeah, this is an agreement that's been in place for 10 years. It is a memorandum of understanding of what the mutual aid will be when officers can use the mutual aid. And just so each town, it kind of closes a loophole that, you know, municipal officers can't police in another town unless they have an agreement. This just makes it where if they were driving back and forth, they saw something being committed in conflict, they would have authority to do so. Same with Maynard, if they came over Maynard. A good example would be an officer from another town saw the stolen cars in the last week. They could act on it without having us to tell them that they can act on it. And then they notify us that they do.
Okay,
So, just, and this is just a policing question, I think, but can a police officer pursue a car speeding from, say, Stowe into Maynard and vice versa?
With this agreement, yes,
Yes, okay.
but not
However-
without this.
They are still, from what I saw, and I think in one of your paperwork, I did see that they are still bound by the law, the rules, or the
Of the-
policies of that of their own department. So if
Their
our,
own
if
department.
our department has a policy on whatever,
Yeah,
if they're in another town, they're still bound by those laws, those policies.
Shortly before I came off, about 30 years ago, I was framing a decision which they had that exact thing. They stopped the car for speeding, just traveled just over the line into Ashland in front of me. The person was OUI, the rest of them was thrown out because it was just a civil violation going into the roads.
and do we have, are all of our abutting towns part of this agreement?
All we have actually a separate agreement with all the abutting towns that they can, you know, help in.
So essentially, we can pursue.
This
and I
is
use that, I
actually
use that.
all
phrase,
Middlesex counties.
pursuits, but you know what I mean? We can,
Yes.
somebody's speeding and they're sitting at Erickson's, and they happen to go into Stowe, I mean, you know.
This is something where somebody's coming back from training in a cruiser, and somebody is wielding, they're gonna, they can flip on the lights.
Yeah.
And stop that car and notify the town that they're.
Could that even be like in, and again, it's just pure policing question, in Bedford, say, Bedford's a member.
That's what this is.
Yeah, okay.
So in that situation where, say, a Maynard cruiser has stopped a vehicle, do they then wait for the Stowe police to arrive to then deal with
They
it?
notify, that's part of what's in the agreement now, that they notify the town that they're in immediately. And then. If somebody told me that they had a car stop, obviously a car from here is gonna go, and I would expect the car from that come to. Again, it doesn't happen that often, but it's just to close that loophole.
No, it's
that
good
it
public
can-
safety, yeah.
Right.
I will move to approve the Middlesex County Chiefs of Police Association Interagency Mutual Aid Agreement, the town of Maynard as presented. Authorizing use of digital signature, sorry.
Sorry, second,
any further questions, comments, concerns?
Enough from the map that Acton wasn't opting in, you just explained they have a individual one, I assume with them, but why wouldn't the community, I see there's a few dotted around the state.
The only reason I can think of is it's kind of an oversight. For whoever was in charge at the time, just didn't want to, and then they never went back in, but I mean, I noticed that, so I said. That surprised me, I saw that they weren't an option community.
So we're covered by a separate agreement with Acton.
Yes. We had that long before the opt-in agreements, just for that reason.
All right, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Next. Personal employment agreement.
You might want to say it.
You might know. All right, do we have a motion on the next item? The personal employment agreement for Police Chief Noble.
Move to approve the personal employment agreement with Michael Noble as chief of police effective July 1st, 2023, to remain in full force and effect until June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Do we have any conversation, just for everybody's information, this was an item that we had discussed earlier in an executive session. Which, but if there's any other questions or concerns to raise at this point. Now is the time.
Greg, typically when we do employment contracts, don't you sort of give a high level conversation for the public? Just so that the public has an understanding of what we're approving.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is a second contract for the. Yes. So Mike Noble's been with the police department for almost 30 years. Although this is his only contract, you know, he's been familiar with the town for a long time, he's family within town. And I think we're really grateful. I know I am for my partnership and relationship that I have with the chief, and so I'll take the aspect of the management of the town. So this is a relatively standard form of contract, and there's very little difference between the original and now this one. Although one sort of significant change is the moving away from the 200 hours of PTO. So it started with
Paid time off.
daytime off. So moving from, we started making that transition away from 200 hours of paid time off with the new fire chief's contract. And so the police chief, and similarly with the deputy police chief in a minute, we're both very receptive to that change, although of course, you know, there was a little bit of discussion about what sort of might be value to them and the value to the town in that transition, as well as towards the term of the contract. But otherwise, it was in no way aggressive negotiations. It was very much open, very professional, and sort of a good understanding of where the other side is coming from. So I very much encourage the board to consider removing this contract. I think I'm grateful for having the chief with us, and his leadership and experiences and relationship amongst all the peers that you just heard in the leadership means a lot to me in town.
Chief, I want to say thank you for the few short years you've been with our department as chief. The diversity that you've brought to the police department, I think, is recognized throughout the community. And I think it's valuable to have that. And I think you recognized it as something that you wanted to get involved in, even your participation with the Human Relations Committee. And I think you recognized from that experience at some point that that having that as a goal of some type. You know, we now have officers that speak multiple languages. We have officers with diverse backgrounds. We have officers that, you know, our police department has become much more diverse. And I think that that's a good thing for Maynard and a good thing as police department overall. I also think that the department that you've developed under your leadership has shown a lot of, not that we didn't have it before, but I really appreciate the community policing aspect that you brought to the town. And, you know, seeing almost weekly, if not daily, pictures of our officers sitting with kids and talking with kids, and developing that relationship at a young age, that is important for I think, for our society and for moving forward as a community. So I really appreciate those efforts you brought. So thank you, and happy to see you re-upping another 3-year term.
I appreciate it, thank you. Again, service is a big part of small community police and community police.
Anybody else have any comments to the chief or in regards to the contract itself?
We vote?
We have not voted. We're about to vote.
I didn't make a sure, I didn't know.
No, we have motion and second and
Yeah.
Dave's comments, and I guess. The next thing is all those in favor. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now. The second item is the personal employment agreement of the deputy police chief. Greg, it's the same.
No, very similar. So the two chiefs are, very reflective of each other. Yeah, so I highly encourage the board to approve this one as well. I believe this is our second, contract with Deputy Triano as well. All good things. I don't work as closely with the deputy chief as much as I do with the police chief. Well, all of the Chris I've heard is doing excellent and really coming into the position very well. Works very well with the department. Good relationship with the chief and the rest of the officers. So I highly recommend the approval of this contract as well.
I'll move to approve the personnel employment agreement with Christopher Triano as deputy chief of police effective July 1st, 2023, to remain in full force and effect until June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, does anybody on the board have any comments or questions or concerns in regards to the deputy chief's contract?
I will say again, I think that he, along with Chief Noble, are excellent additions or continuations of the department reflecting the town.
During this time, too, he sits on milestone where he went to the FBI National Academy with the senior management boost. And he's now supposed to get his master's. And Nichols.
Nick? God bless him. Bison, all right, God. Huh, all those in favor? I'll have to give him one of my license plates practice. They got a few of them lying around still.
Very good, rate for his veteran services.
When your daughter is best friends with the director of alumni affairs, you get all that good stuff. Tell him, you know, if he needs any.
Nichols, is it?
Yeah,
Nichols,
yeah.
They have a program where one of the leadership trainings that we had run with Littleton and Hampton. Week-long leadership class. Tied up with Nichols and then Nichols off.
Do you do it online or do you have to drive down?
Most of it.
Yeah, they actually have a satellite classroom in the same building as Capital Group. They're on a separate floor in the building is the Capital Group, but they were for a while.
I know he has to go out there every so often, but most of the classes.
When he has to go to the principal's office.
And that's what that's why I looked to see if he's gone, they in class.
Deans, yeah. All right, well, thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, a contract for the Sugarloaf recreational marijuana. Contract HCA extension request.
So, Mr. Chair, this is Attorney Sullivan. He is.
You said one of those. Sit right up front.
So I think the last time we saw him, he was probably on the 12th.
Oh, I was here for that.
Oh, you were? I apologize.
Someone just retired that same day, a woman that was. It was her last day, it was her last
Becky?
day,
Becky,
Had to be Becky.
Probably 2 years ago.
yeah, it was her last day when I was there.
So, Becky.
So Sugarloaf is Attorney Sullivan's client. I also want to point out that we're joined by our own counsel, Liz Lyden, joining us in Zoom. So Mr. Sullivan reached out to my office to be able to update basically their host community agreement, the terms of their agreement, as pointed out in the motion. My computer's really weird, so I actually couldn't read it. But he can explain a little further, but unless I'm mistaken, besides the actual dates of the agreement, I don't believe you're proposing any other changes. Am I mistaken?
No, just an extension of the HCA.
Exactly. So the rest of the conditions of the ACA continue. There is a caveat, and that maybe Attorney Lyden can speak to it more if the board, or if she feels like we need to know. Recent legislation, and I can't recall pending or to be approved, will probably significantly impact the communities. Authority and post community agreement negotiations. That's not pertinent to this evening's motion. But even when the time comes, town council, town administrator staff will present you with that.
So
But he'll also speak to what, like, how far you've come since the last time we saw you, what's your plan?
The last time I was here in August of 2022, our application was filed. We're in the process of moving forward with our special permit. And we weren't gonna make the deadline of, I give up the deadline is the January 2023, 2023, in order to be able to be open. Since that point, our application was approved by the CCC on April 23rd. We already got our special permit from the planning board. The issue we have is now construction period, and that we don't anticipate being able to make that deadline and being open by January 23rd, 2024. So we're asking for a year extension.
And Attorney Feldman, can you also clarify, or verify? The establishment is meant to go, on the left-hand side if you're facing, arts specialties.
Yes.
So, and the board had considered sort of like both layout at the time, although not getting into the security aspect of it, but like really what the egress and ingress was gonna be and sort of like layout. Is there any like significant change?
No, I mean,
Might you know?
One of the things that the board, when we did the original HCA, was to ensure that our whole facility would never had any common area with regard to arts. So with the whole building is based on, we come on in the front door. The back door will be used for deliveries, but it does not connect to arts or any other common area of the facility. And that's what the board wanted when we came in for our HCA. And that's the plan we presented to the planning board. What we're in the process of doing now of completing our architectural design, so we can submit to the Cannabis Control Commission, because we have to lay on the floor plan, security plan and so forth. So it was a little bit more involved. So we hope to have that done soon and construction started. We should have, if we haven't done so already, we're applying for our demolition permit so we can get the space ready.
All right,
Is that, I don't know, yeah, Attorney White, is there anything you want to add?
yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
So, just following up on what Greg had mentioned, there are regulations pending that have not been finalized that would impact the existing agreement, but as he mentioned, that's not at issue today. The existing agreement stands and does allow for the extension that's requested. And it's up to the select board whether or not they want to approve an extension.
So would the rules, and I'm sorry if you just said this and I didn't understand it, but would the pending rules take away the ability to put some kind of sunset clause on, or an opening clause in the HCA?
No, it would not. It would require that we update the entire agreement.
Oh, so just to kind of clarify, again, I appreciate that. It's not like a grandfathered HCA, so whatever is agreed upon, whether any of the town already has two for the public knowledge. So if this new legislation is approved, we have to renegotiate, if any, HCA.
So we would need to renegotiate the payment terms specifically. The remainder would likely stay as it is. And payments would then become retroactive, which under the current law, that is how they're supposed to be imposed now.
Just on the impact fee though, correct? Not on the general tax impact.
Correct.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, I don't have any issue with, and I wouldn't discourage the board on this, it's just an extension of
all
time.
right. And just to clarify for anybody that's following along at home, this is not the same right side of the building we had a problem with last year.
No.
So this is, that was the right rear. This is a completely different operation. This was already set. It's just been taking a little longer than these guys have hoped. So,
That's the right
this
rear
is, this is,
downstairs.
yeah, this is a retail facility.
Right.
Left front.
All right.
upstairs.
And just to clear, because someone was, oh, I thought you told them no. So anyways.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we're looking at. Okay,
And to be fair, we had a heavy debate about the left front upstairs.
Yeah, it's prior to this, yeah.
So we're not here to litigate.
No, all right, so, item D, does anybody want to make a motion in regards to an extension of this contract request?
Move to approve the extension of the host community agreement with Sugarloaf for a new term to expire January 23rd, 2025. Authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Second.
All right, does anybody have any comments or questions? All right, all in favor?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, good luck.
You have a good night. Thank you.
Just excuse me, something one minute.
Okay. Right, Colliers, OPM Services, Alumni Field Bleachers, Greg, we're out.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I conducted a procurement procedure, request for qualifications to receive, proposals from prospective owners, project managers to kind of help steward the replacement of the alumni field bleachers. We got a number of bids, so to speak, submitted, myself, Justin Marco, and representatives from the superintendent's office reviewed those and assigned them accordingly to the evaluation criteria. And we found Colliers to be the most advantageous and reputable responsive of the proposals. And this contract is a result of that negotiations. The terms of the contract calls out that the cost is not to exceed $100,000, which does fall in with the budget that we have right now. So although it's hard to say exactly what the final cost of this contract is going to be, but again, this is just a project manager, which is a requirement of procurement law because of the expected overall project costs. It surpasses the threshold requiring like project manager. So this is kind of step one in any sort of like large facility construction. You've got a project manager on board, and then you move into designs. And so designs is going to be funded both through the same appropriations that town meeting has already provided for bleachers and redesigned bleachers and replacement and even temporary bleachers. But those designs will also be supplemented by CPC funds. However, CPC funds will be restricted to only the bleachers and not the press box. So just a kind of a funny accounting separation there. The original intent was to have the construction costs for the replacement of bleachers to be funded through debt exclusion, just because we don't, if it's more than $2 million, we don't have that's the money. So we would have to bond out for that. However, the school committee has since opted to delay, if you will, any sort of like borrowing authorization for debt exclusion until the spring town meeting. But that and having conversations with the team here in town hall as well as with this prospective contractor, Colliers, we feel like it's still strategically advantageous to have the contract in place sooner than later, so that we can do into designs and have it all really set up that much more informed. Colliers, you'll probably recognize names because it's the same team stewarding the new elementary school.
Right, so we have this $100,000. If in the springtime, nobody wants to vote for the expenditure, the additional, what happens to the 100,000?
No, that stays.
Sure, well, we're spending it on the, yeah.
So you're so.
No, I get it. So.
This happened with the fire station. So the fire station, we hired a project manager, hired a design firm, went through the designs. I don't recall if we actually stamped the designs, knowing that we wasn't sure when we were going to go to town meeting to actually fund the construction of the fire station. But at some point, though, obviously, we did finalize the stamped designs because we had sort of enough confidence going town meeting that was going to be, which it was. So that ends up being the case. That ends up being the case. We'll still have, like, or if you're not using the project manager, you're not paying the project manager. So if and that was the case with the fire station, we kind of put that on ice for a while, and then when we thought we were going to town meetings, we followed back up.
Okay.
I'm curious about, so I was actually, I was in favor of well, not saying I was in favor of the school committee putting off the vote for the fall.
Mhm.
But I was what I need in order to be supportive of the project is to actually have a plan of some sort before we say, yes, we want to go forward with it. So I would expect to hear what the task force has come up with, you
Right.
know, in order to do that.
Designs.
Designs,
Yeah, yeah.
or what are they thinking? Because I know that, you know, I think, you know, scope creep is real.
Yeah.
And so are we just designing bleachers? Or are we designing bleachers and a concession stand and a bathroom and a press box and everything else? So that's my concern, and I don't know, when we go through the process, and again, I know that we have. This is more in the school's court, but when they're moving ahead with this, is this something where we'll have a base scope? And then from there, you have the alternates of, you can have this, and then, or you could have this, or you could have this.
For design.
So, for design, so,
I think that's an excellent. If I recall, that was. But I might be mistaken, that was sort of like the conclusion expectation of that joint meeting we had with the school committee is that, yes, the base would be replaced with teachers.
Yeah.
But then an alternate may be, well, actually, that base may or may not be in the press box, because my recollection was that was kind of necessity identified by the reports. But after that, you're right, whether it
Yeah.
be bathroom facilities or, I don't know, whatever. But like,
concession
that
or
could be
whatever.
concessions, that could be spelled out as all, that's a general report to this project.
Yeah.
Anyways, but like, yeah, having alternate bids is key. But you're exactly right, I think at this, a little bit of strategic patience really lends itself to like having a more thought out, thorough advocacy in the spring to say like, hey, this is what we want to do.
The task force is being led by Mike Gary.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, could he put, not necessarily come to us to present, but maybe just throw it to our correspondence and update along the lines we've heard of this at for the next meeting or two?
So. When this comes around, it's gonna be something that the school is gonna prepare the article for and request.
yeah, just to take your question. Yes and no, so I actually have to look at Justin, I'm trying to remember specifically who owns the bleachers.
Well, technically, the schools own the bleachers.
Right.
And technically, for our MOA, our recent MOA agreement, they are responsible for the maintenance. of those. Right, in essence, the town of Maynard as a whole, very, it is identified within the school.
Because this funding source is not appropriate directly to the schools, it is appropriate for this contract to be approved by the select board. But
Wait, can you repeat that sentence?
this funding wasn't to the schools, so like, there's an
Oh, no, are we talking about the $100,000 right now?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But everything's been done very, very closely in collaboration with the superintendent's office, athletic director, and with the understanding that the school committee has been informed, endorsed, so to speak, along the way. And as the chief procurement officer, it's not that unheard of that I have certain problems, although Wayne White, at this time, he is fully capable of doing this. But we have such a strong sort of influence, a small town like this. It's just an appropriate collaboration.
No, it's just a, you know, when the time comes that there'll be questions about that.
But also the public, I mean, if I recall, like, there was like, the football supporters that come expecting the select board to fix the bleachers, so.
Yeah.
Right, so that's why we want to make sure that,
Yeah.
that the public is aware that this is a school
Sure.
project. That then, you know, then when they decide what they are looking for and what they want, then they would, you know,
Sure.
come to us to put it on the warrant. So I just want to make sure that,
Right.
make that clear.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the contract with Colliers International Incorporated for owner project manager OPM services for the Alumni Field Bleachers project in the amount not to exceed $100,000 as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, do we have further discussion in regards to Colliers being the OPM for the bleacher project?
So this just means we'll have $19,000 left in that account after that.
No, after spending down, the year's worth of rentals.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
for this plus a year's worth of rentals.
Yeah, but we don't, I mean, that's on the assumption we spend all of that.
Any other questions, concern? All right, all those in favor? Okay. Black Rock Galleries, 1 Summer Street, PNS.
So, Mr. Chair, we are joined this evening by Mr. Parnas. You're muted, but this is Grant. Right, so. how you doing? Okay, so, Black Rock Galleries was the awarded, proposal to acquire the old fire station. And the board already looked at that letter of award and it's granted that. This is the purchase and sale agreement, which subsequent to that action. It had been, the purchase and sale agreement in a draft form was included in the RFP, so this is not, it's not like new in terms of this. And the purchase and sale incorporates the proposal from Black Rock Galleries, into acquiring that property. So this is a positive step forward. This is probably not the last time we'll hear about this property, because town council is interested in negotiating a development agreement, sort of like solidify some of the terms and conditions of the acquisition. And that is also not under when it comes to the municipalities closing the property. But I've been really appreciative of the responsiveness and patience of Grant and his team. We try to move as fast as we can. We are a small town, and I'm the little chief procurement officer, whether it be town council or Grant's own council or the fire council. Everyone's been trying to sort of like stay on top of it and move forward. So thank you for your cooperation, Grant. And my board docs is not doing very well tonight, so if you guys ask me any very specific questions about the term, I don't know if I'll be able to bring it up very fast.
Quick, find specific question.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, it's the same questions that I think we asked before, that they're not necessarily called out here.
Okay.
In this contract, but. The price itself is, when you look at it at the first glance, it's, it's $50,000 and that's
Right.
clearly not enough for that property, but, we were gonna figure out what those other expenses are that the buyer is bearing, that the town would otherwise have to bear.
Yep.
In order to sell, use, or do whatever to that building.
Yeah, there's
So,
an expectation of
so I'm just,
possibly $500,000.
right, but weren't we gonna kind of know what that number was looking like, so that when this becomes public knowledge, it's not a bunch of people in town wondering why we only accepted
Yeah,
X dollars for it?
I thought we
I think we had.
I thought we had got
I know we had talked about, but I don't.
We had
I'm
an itemized list.
kind of looking for, and I don't think it prohibits us from agreeing to this. I just think that it's something that as a board and as a town, we need to have, so that when this is discussed and when it comes up in conversation, the answer to the question is, this is the purchase price, but here's what the buyer is taking on that we actually own as a community.
Yeah, we had an itemized list.
Asbestos remediation.
Yep.
All that other stuff. Those things are our expenses that they're gonna deal with.
No, I can get that.
All right.
I think we figure out a way to get
Yeah,
it.
we had previously got.
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. I know we had it, we kind of talked about it, but I don't know that we ever got actually.
Yeah, this
Numbers.
ridiculous numbers being tossed out about what the value of this property was, and the whole thing with the use of the independent marketer and everything else. It's just false information, but be that as it may.
All right. All right, does anybody have any questions about this other than that, or concerns?
I'm anxious to see the development agreement.
Yeah,
Now,
All
I
right.
would move to refine it, to approve the purchase and sale agreement with Black Rock Galleries for the disposition of 1 Summer Street, Maynard, as presented.
Second.
okay, does anybody have any questions other than those? Any questions? No? Okay, all those in favor? Great, Thank you.
Welcome to Maynard.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, and I tell you what, we're very excited to work with you guys. It's a great project. It's a great building, and hopefully when it's done, you guys are as proud of it as we will be. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We were very impressed with your presentation, so.
Pretty well, Jennifer, she's wonderful. She's a great part of our team. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. MS4 compliance support engineering amendments. MS4.
There you go.
He's relaxed.
Been a long day. Good evening, Justin Marker, DPW Director. How's it going? It's good to see you all. So it's that time of year, where we are looking at our MS4, FY24, permit process, which is really cumbersome at times. And this comes off of the recent, approval of the town engineer, which is VHP. And with that is your first 2 task orders, which fall under the MS4 compliance. These are tasks within the overall contract, but they are generalized tasks, but they're really specific tasks based on the fact that VHB provides our service for maintaining our yearly process through the MS4 and dealing with Mass DEP. And with that, there's also a second amendment as we move forward to provide a full feasibility study on the possibility of funding mechanisms for the future to adhere to them for permit as it progresses and to advance infrastructure improvement and stormwater, such as drainage systems throughout the town of Maynard. What we have in front of you is those 2 amendment items to the overall contract that we have with VHB. And as you can see from the memo, that this funding mechanism is already put in place in the FY24 operating budget. We're going to, piecemeal along with the feasibility study, as we have not been able to acquire an overall funding mechanism to do the entirety of the feasibility study. So we are moving that along with a little portion of the remaining balance of the MS4 line and breaking into our overall town consulting engineering line. We can move that process forward. I am happy to move that process forward as there has been a grant opportunity identified, and that's what we're going to be looking for to maybe finalize the overall cost of stormwater feasibility studies in the federal government. Federal grants are very cumbersome, they require a lot of work, but the opportunity is there, and the DPW truly believes that a funding source needs to be identified, a consistent, sustainable funding source, as you've seen with recent events, that we have significant flooding issues within the town of Maynard. And that is causing private property damage, and it is also causing safety concerns as well. Our infrastructure is well over 100 years, and we barely put pennies into that system. And that's due to the fact that there is not necessarily consistent funding mechanism as a whole. It is part of an overall DPW budget. Unlike water and sewer, it is shared against other resources and other constraints, such as road work, sidewalk work, traffic signals, etc. Isolating a single source of funding and controlling that mechanism will allow us to improve that infrastructure in the future. So I believe that's a very vital aspect. As noted, Greg can sign off on this, but part of the reason that I brought this to the board's attention was, one, these are 2 amendments to an overall contract, but I want to keep it in the forefront as an opportunity, as we may see a PowerPoint presentation in the future, and we'll progress on that and we move forward. And that's going to be. Is there any questions? I know Mike is a little new to the parts, so please, if there's questions, I'd love to answer them. I know a lot of the board members have heard that MS4 process moving forward for years.
Anybody have any questions in regards to MS4? It's at annual time.
I will move to approve the amendment number 1, the MS4 compliance support engineering contract between the town of Maynard and Manas Hangen Bristland VHB for year 6 of the town of Maynard's MS4 stormwater management program, effective July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, in the amount of $96,200, authorizing use of digital signatures.
Second.
Any conversation, any comments? All those in favor? Great, thanks, Justin. Don't move. We went to the annual pavement management plan. If you want to explain to everybody what that entails.
So I'm happy to finally present you with a full recommendation for pavement management. As you've heard me say in the past, I actually despise, or no, not despise, it's probably the wrong word, but I do not encourage fall paving. It's something that's not prudent or effective and efficient in the Department of Public Works and our resources. But due to a significant amount of variables in regards to how we fund this, one, the delay in utilizing the contract for our town engineer. Two, some of the other major projects we have going on that piggyback off of Chapter 90, which is the Hayes Concord intersection and the stormwater improvement on Main Street based on earmarks. We're happy to present this, and there was actually also some change of variations at the recent annual town meeting, which had to adapt some of our plans as well, as we rely heavily on a significant amount of different funding mechanisms to move our pavement management process forward. So unfortunately, those dynamics have allowed for a later than anticipated pavement management recommendation. As you can see from the memo, it looks very complex, but it is not that complex. There's just a lot of moving parts, and a lot of this is piggybacking off of years of what we've been moving forward with overall plans. The recommendation is to include a fall paving program and a spring paving program. The spring paving program, as indicated, is only based on anticipation that at special town meeting, that 3 unaccepted roads will be accepted, and then we would move towards paving. The third part of that motion is also to update our townwide inventory with an asset management system. So it is pretty much a LiDAR system where we have an engineering firm drive every single route with LiDAR technology, which helps to redetermine their PCI ratings. So it really does a thorough evaluation of the current conditions, and then programs it back into the program, and certain streets will actually be recategorized. And this is something that is prudent, as degradation happens at different rates for streets. So when we forecast this in advance, when we do these kind of inventories, we forecast out 5 to 10 years, but other dynamics happen within that 5 to 10 year window. So it's very prudent to conduct this process as a whole.
Just on that point, that light, I'm sorry, is what street? Is that every street?
Every single street in town.
So the road, you know, we've seen a map with all the roads labeled with the different conditions. How, and that, you just said this, how often do we do that?
So doing this type of asset management, the last time we did it was in 2014. The map is updated based off the sheer fact of just a representation of what we paid and what we haven't paid.
We're gonna get a decade long increment or improvement of that map based on the LiDAR survey, and then thereon we'll go back to annual updates on that based on here's the LiDAR survey from 2024.
This is what we
And
pay.
now, if I was a member of the public that was interested in that map, is that gonna be posted somewhere? Because that kind of tells me if I'm, you know, on a random road, am I coming up soon to repavement, or is it way down? Like,
No, so the map, so we always update the map downtown, and excuse me, downstairs in the Department of Public Works. And we're working on, now that we have a new updated website, we're working on incremental updates to our web pages as a whole. We have to kind of balance that. We don't have a dedicated webmaster, so every department has the ability to update their website. So we're moving towards that process. And Jeff, if you remember that we actually explored an updated pavement management program that would have encompassed a lot more of feedback. So like a outward facing portal, but it was roughly almost $35,000 to $40,000 years ago. We can't find it in the budget. It's one of those things that has to clean back against other things that will do stormwater. But that being said, the map itself is a PDF, and we update that as an archive in our current highway department page in our town DPW website. So at least for the most simplistic part, the mapping will be available. That mapping will change. It won't drastically change, as this is really variables that we haven't encountered per se, meaning that we haven't driven every road. The map is pretty accurate to begin with, because we are updating that as things are paved. Even when Eversource does work, we get that information and it's announced into our program. So when you have roads like Park Street that were paved, obviously due to other incidents, that does get updated in our estimate.
So you're updating that map more frequently than annually, so everybody?
No, it's updated annually, but it's updated annually in advance of our recommendations. So we're not reacting, we're being proactive in our approaches to that. It's just done throughout the course of the year. With that being said, there's also some variables that have also come to light with the indication of an emergency paving list. The DPW was made notified of some issues in a couple of locations on Windmill Drive and Country Lane of some concern, some actually major concern of some nails and screws in the road. So we received one correspondence, and when you hear something like that, it looks like a localized event. Okay, was there a construction worker in town that may have dumped some stuff on the road? We provide annual sweeping in the spring and the fall, so typically things like that are taken advantage of. When we had multiple correspondence from multiple residents, myself and Lena Miko went on site to do an investigation. We found that there was a significant issue in regards to what is called the base coat, which is starting to play light on the top. So it's hard to explain, but not really. So the base coat is the first layer of asphalt, and then the top coat is layered on it. The top coat is what's called a wear coat. Over time, that top coat wears and the base coat starts to poke out. There is embedding nails and screws throughout the entirety of both roadways. I literally spent probably an hour walking, combing an inches by inches process, zigzag, and found almost a bucket full of nails. And I'm sure we have residents today who performed something. Can you hold up your bag, Jack? You know, it's probably done today. Where we are literally seeing it in patterns, and I had to use my knife to pull them out of the asphalt.
Where would
So
they come from?
So there's a couple of determinations. One, it could be a situation where somebody put it into the paving box and spread it out on purpose. But we've come to the determination that,
Put it into the paving box.
yeah, so you have to remember that a lot of these subdivisions are built by private developers. And
So like
sometimes,
dirty fills.
They had to
yeah,
get rid of
sometimes dirty
junk.
fill, things of that.
Not intentionally, but they were grabbing.
You never know.
Yeah.
But our determination has led to a different aspect. In the 70s and 80s, there was an idea, a sustainable idea to recycle asphalt shingles and utilize it in asphalt. And there's magnet systems. So as you can imagine, when somebody redoes your roof, there's a significant amount of roofing nails and screws, etc. That batch was probably dirty, and it was probably due to a magnet failure in the asphalt plant. Just based on the sporadic nature of it, and it really is all isolated into the base. So that is what we're assuming happened at this point, but that's why we're moving this up and bringing this to the board's attention, because technically those roads wouldn't be slated to be milled and overlaid or reclaimed anytime soon based off their PCI index. But this is a circumstance that's unlike anyone else. In my 20 years, I've never seen it. In Wayne's 35 years, he's never seen it. This is not common, unfortunately, like everything, I mean, it seems to have those uncommon issues. They always tend to poke up. So with that being said, I'm looking to the board to support future funding to improve and increase our overall allowance for road repaving. And we may revisit this in the spring at the annual town meeting. As the board is aware, the department heads do put forth capital improvements, and I will make sure that this is the highest of priorities. And I just want the board to be apprised while they're reviewing the capital committee's recommendation that this is something that they keep in their forefront, as this is something that will need to be addressed within 8 years' time. The only reason that we didn't put this forward is because we're balancing multiple projects here. We have, if you notice from our recommendation, there is a balance delta between the available funds in Chapter 90 and what we're asking for. The reason that's in front of you right now with the balance is because we have two major projects underway. Hayes Concord Acton intersection and Main Street stormwater improvements. We received the earmarks for those, but those earmarks will fall short of the total overall construction cost. We can use Chapter 90 to supplement both of those projects. Both of those projects are under design as we speak, and we'll have those realization costs probably sometime in the winter month. We'll be able to isolate some of the Chapter 90 fund and move on some of those projects. But I may be back to the board again with another capital improvement request that may also look to support those projects moving forward. Maynard traditionally has performed in a way that they react, and then projects sometimes never come to fruition because we only fund the full design, and we never find the mechanism or the funding mechanism to finish the project. Akron Hayes intersection is one of those projects that at one time we had the ability, but then again, prioritize it, and we lost that funding and we didn't move forward. I don't want that to happen with both of those projects, because I can also sit here and tell you those are vital, important projects as well. I think this is one, where this is a strong recommendation moving forward. I think it's one that we are supporting the residents' need in the emergency aspect. In the meantime, I think we can continue to increase operational sweeping there to help with that situation. And I think it's prudent that we just make it aware for the Capcom that they understand the prioritization of this request when they do their considerations for free cash in the future, or we look towards other funding mechanisms to improve our payment management program moving forward. Reliance on Chapter 90, as you can see, I was requested a couple of years ago to provide a forecasting model of what our spending limit looks like and where we're keeping pace. And as you can see from the forecasting model, even the recommendation is actually still declining in our approach. And that recommendation includes a small localized fund, a one-time ramp fund, and almost 3/4 of our Chapter 90 balance. So we are still falling short of the funding requirements to move our payment management program in a progressive nature as opposed to declining nature. With that being said, this is what the Department of Public Works is asking the select board to approve, but I am open to discussion.
What do you expect the total cost per country windmill to be paving to be approximately?
Absolutely.
That's,
78,000.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
And on top of that, is there any reason to believe that the same problem might exist elsewhere?
So like I said, there's a reason I brought up the fact that in my 20 years and the town engineer's 35 years, and these aren't combined together. We're representing multiple different communities based off our experience. I've never seen it before. This subdivision, I will tell you that I've discussed with certain stakeholders, Jack being one of them in the back, who's been a Maine resident for a very long time. One of my first indication was who's the developer, and then where are we going with this? And this developer is not a common developer where there is a significant amount of subdivision. So at that time, it's based on that window, I would say it's highly unlikely that this is something that we'll see in the future, but I can never confirm.
so you mentioned that and I know you've given a whole number of options for us to look at and consider. And I realize and respect the idea that we need to hold money aside for those other two big projects. Would you still not recommend moving forward with the emergency paving and try to get funding at Springtown meeting? Or should we, I'm honestly asking for your opinion, can we afford to use this $78,000 out of our money to do that earlier than town meeting?
So without a known funding source to support those two earmarks, we have to spend the earmarks by the end of the fiscal cycle. So we can't necessarily move a project forward if we don't have the matching funds to complete it. That is why I haven't recommended it.
Okay.
But I am 100% open to opportunities for funding sources to move that forward. And I would be happy to revisit the emergency paving. Part of the reason I'm bringing it up is I don't necessarily want you to think that this is the only time we have this discussion. We can absolutely talk about funding mechanisms moving forward over the winter during the budget cycle, where we can have another recommendation in the spring. And we can also look at, special town meeting. We can't anticipate that the town can accept those 3 roads. It's not a guarantee. There's a reason that we have 48 unaccepted roads in this town. And if you look back on all of our town meeting warrants for over the past 50 to 75 years, it plays the opposite. Most of the time, these roads aren't accepted. Now, I believe most of that happened over 30 to 40 years ago. In our recent acceptances, such as PNAB and some of the new subdivisions, the town has voted to accept them. But I think, again, this is still a different circumstance. This isn't a brand new road that's being accepted. This is a degraded road that we're gonna have to put funding mechanisms into. But it's a balance of the two, and that's one of those situations where, let's just say that town meeting votes down Allen Fletcher Heights, I'm going to be back literally the next select board meeting with our recommendation to move forward with the emergency meeting.
I will, make a comment.
Motion.
I'll move to accept the Department of Public Works FY 2024 pavement management plan for a total value of $522,889.36 as presented.
Second.
Further conversation? Question? All in favor? Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
You said it was a long day, about 6 hours ago.
Goes back.
Greg, we're on to number 10, Greg,
Yeah, that's right. Sure. So,
Meadow School Building Projects.
this is both the status report, but as well as that membership list, which includes the two members. So.
Okay.
So I take it at the last, at the, this falls under the Screen Meadow School Building Project, so you guys had your meeting today.
Yeah.
So that was the, I'm assuming the PBSA was approved by people.
It's
Awesome.
You want to go?
And then they afterwards, they went into, just comparing, finally, primarily by Mary Brandley of what the sort of community advocacy approaches. And they held a number of meetings and forums and coffee talks and they're talking about how to, again, abide by election law restrictions, which is the use of certain like community like taxes, political action can't have political actions. But anyway, so they're trying to be really thoughtful and strategic to the whole thing and get as much word out as they can. And I'm really impressed by this sort of like continued evolution of their PowerPoint presentation with the Colliers has been, and Colliers in partnership with Mount Vernon Group, the designers, they've been, I think, really receptive to the questions and concerns they've gotten from the community. And it only helps having like John Morris on board now and sort of like having that perception of how it might come off, how it might be heard in other towns. And so they're just continuing to refine the messaging.
I think it's been helpful. I went to the community forum and then I went to, and obviously I was at our meeting and then I listened to the presentation of the finance committee.
Wow.
And at every one, they Colliers and NVG have been honing their message.
Right.
And so things that maybe we asked our select board meeting, they've incorporated into the next, because they know it's going to be asked, or they know it had been asked, so someone else is going to ask a question, so they've incorporated it to make a smoother presentation.
Yeah.
And I think they've done a really great job with that.
I believe they also, well, we voted today to spend the money to do some modeling.
I might have signed off. I had to get yours.
Oh, well, you missed it. You missed it. Yeah. We signed up there.
Okay.
So they approved a change order, really, it's not necessarily a change order, but the inclusions of energy modeling, but this is based off of their sort of app. So just a quick update, so it's a little more understood. Is while we pursue the path one, energy modeling can be paid 50% higher, which it will be potentially paid 50%. So the MSBA can cover the market as well. But that is necessarily the scope that wasn't budgeted for. It's budgeted in the contingency part of our feasibility study, but not an isolated line.
And there are incentives for participating in the Path One program too.
Well, absolutely. So we were always in the path one. I will tell you this, that we were part of that, and I was actually the one who brought the municipal team at the beginning. We signed an MOA agreement with the path one process, and this is still somewhat a little early. But it is one that we heard loud and clear, and the team is definitely moving forward.
It's also, they changed the, they didn't change, they updated the presentation based on our comments. Went to the school committee, re-updated it, went to FinCom. And both FinCom and the school committee both approved the plan that we voted on today to approve.
And just for some more information, the green engineer, who is the consultant that will be doing that energy modeling, who's always in some scope to do that energy model. This is just an early process. Green engineer is also an energy modeler on Acton. They're very common. This is what happened. They were the sustainability subcontractors for.
All right, so you're gonna vote to,
Was there any discussion on the MSBA incentives? The incentives for the opt-in, meeting the opt-in specialized energy code and then the ventilation.
Did we touch on that today? I think we did, but mostly in correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but it was like, taking consideration of all these things. I think we were, like I said, too.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I don't think we like really specified that.
It didn't go into any detail.
They weren't that specific, but they did use several different points, different incentives and plans, and they used a number of $6 million, 6 point something million in overall incentives and those type of plans that they were in pursuit of, I guess, for lack of a better term.
At the FinCom meeting, they also did specify that they are continuing communications with the MSBA to identify any additional incentives that the town may follow. One of the issues sometimes is that, and this is, I'm just saying this, they didn't say this, but this is what I kind of saw already with, we had the luck, if you will, to get into the process a little bit later, because when we got into the process a little bit later, the MSBA had already upped their reimbursement amount, their reimbursement cap. So anyone who had gotten in before that wouldn't have been grandfathered in necessarily. So I think right now, Phil and Chris have said that they are in constant communication with the MSBA, looking at whatever incentives the town does qualify, and the MSBA wants to give us whatever we qualify.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's represents $3.3 million, so it's not a small amount whatsoever, and they would get it passed it, but not given to us before our town meeting vote. It seems not like something the MSBA would want to do on purpose, so I would hope that we would ask them to get as much confirmation, and if we can get a confirmation from the MSBA that if we meet those targets, we get those incentives before our town meeting, that is a huge thing we can bring to the voter at town meeting. So I think we should definitely not just continue that communication, but see if we can get some sort of confirmation from the MSBA prior to the town meeting vote. That's critical. We can walk into that and say, not only this, but there's an additional $3.3 million of incentives that is approved from the state of Massachusetts. But after the numbers were calculated, if we meet them, but we legally have to meet the opt-in specialized stretch energy code anyway. And as we heard at our last meeting, they're already planning to meet the ventilation requirements. So we will be meeting all of them. So absolutely, let's go after the MSBA and see if we can get those that funding.
Are those incentives necessarily the same as the ones covered through the IRA?
No, these are state incentives
They're
from the
just-
MSBA. These are separate from the IRA incentives.
And I can add, so Jamie Eldridge's office did reach out to MSBA, that's a stronger voice in this policy. I would always add that part of the process, which Maynard is going through, and it seems like sometimes Maynard always falls in this middle process of policy. I will tell you that MSBA probably adopted that based on the sheer fact of a lot of questions we provided to a number of our OERs. During this process, the OER would not commit to a lot of aspects, and neither would some of our state legislators, as they haven't created the policies. I think just like anything else, and as you can see from ARPA, you'll see it in the IRA, is federal policy is implemented and then the state is responding. Well, while the state's responding, so on locales. And sometimes that weird overlap happens. I know that Jamie's office did reach out. I saw correspondence that Phil was in communication with that as well. We were going to their formal recommendations. And we heard that Jamie Eldridge's office was making far more headway than we were at that point. So if anything, I would kind of reach back out as select board to Jamie and just see where they are in that process.
Who's the conversation today on the stretch code is that it's not a choice.
No, it's not.
So
It's a binding mechanism.
yeah, so that's gonna happen, but there was two parts. What was the second part?
The
That is
zero, the net.
the
net
net
zero.
zero, yeah, the net zero, yeah. So the stretch code is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because
Stretch code has
that's
to
been adopted. And then
The specialized stretch code.
Yeah.
Yeah, the opt-in special, so the one that town meeting adopted,
Yeah.
because that is technically a statute, the AG's office confirmed, and that is a requirement. By law, because they have to meet the local bylaws, which we had a previous strict code, and then we opted into the strict.
Yeah.
The net zero is a pulse. Bigger situation. That's why it wasn't binding, but like anything else, as stakeholders are moving their wants or their expectation levels. The OPM and the design team is gonna move in that approach, and that's what the committee's job is, and their role is to kind of find out what it is that the overall community is looking for.
The MSBA incentive is tied to net zero, it's tied to that specialized stretch and route, which we have to meet anyway, so if the MSBA allows it, then we will automatically have to get that, so let's.
Yeah, as long as they allow us.
Oh, okay.
So Senator Eldred wanted to get confirmation that, from, can you send the legal counsel document email that confirms town meeting is binding on the, inspection? Do you send that to Senator Eldred's office? Yeah, sure. So we can use that for that, with the NSBA. Sure. Thank you.
And I know the minutes were also corrected, because there was some confusion by someone, the sustainability committee. Jerry did mention the meeting minutes were updated to include that the office is binding.
You
Apparently it read differently.
retroactively changed the school building committee minutes?
Oh, so apparently they were wrong.
No, so they amended the minutes and already been approved to reflect the more accurate.
The school building committee minutes.
School building committee minutes
That all right.
that you voted tonight, the ones that have been enacted.
From a few months ago.
Yeah.
Got it, thank you.
Another item they spent quite a bit of time on today was looking into the issues around what a renovation would look like. And that essentially on more detailed examination, the cost of renovation is now up around the $40 million mark, as opposed to the 34, 35, which is what it was a couple of weeks ago, most notably because of the cost of getting temporary classrooms.
Yeah.
The cost of that has soared probably since the pandemic.
So I think we've made a significant headway towards picking up possibly $3.3 million. We have re-engaged with the Pathway Energy Program, and we picked up Ken Newhouser as a voting member, and we got Josh Morse and just wealth of expertise coming out of the committee. So I think that's a lot of wins in the last 3 weeks. So I want to thank everybody involved in that and the school building committee for progressing all of those forward.
Okay. We want to make a motion to accept the list. We got to accept the list so that Josh and Josh and Ken can vote.
I'll move to approve the Green Meadow School Building Committee membership list as presented, authorized to use the digital signatures if approved.
Second.
Any discussion on the list? All those in favor? The list has been accepted, Greg. Well, that special town meeting, Greg.
So I'm looking at her screen with my board docs stuff. So, oh, I'm back. Wait, no, I'm back. Okay, so, Mr. Chair, there's a number of articles that the board has not yet accepted. So, one is the amendments to the general fund budget this school year, 2024. Another one is the transfer of capital stabilization for HVAC system replacement at Federal School that was submitted by the school committee. And then proposed roadway easements. But I'm looking to, and the board already accepted the unaccepted roads article.
Yes, it was the earlier version, but then we just found out that it was split into two separate articles. The one that was already approved is pretty much the exact same language, but we still had to break it out, so it's draft.
And I can explain why.
Alright, so.
So, Mr. Chair, maybe I can start with the general fund. So for, it's relatively short money, it's about $32,000. Was the outcome of the recently signed state budget to the black, which is good. So $32,000 of additional revenue can be appropriated at town meeting if so, moved by the select board. I'd have to bring up I'm trying to bring up my notes. Thank you, Stephanie. So it's about, I think I was gonna do $5,000 towards cultural recreation, which is the library, for some supplemental salary expenses, and then $27,000 of the remaining revenue towards Specifically the fire department, but on the budget, you'll see it's listed under public safety. And that's because admittedly, there were some accounting errors. We did not attribute enough towards Catherine's overtime, I believe there's another. So that's not gonna be enough. Unfortunately, it's not a great answer, but as the fiscal year progresses and we can sort of just monitor the expenses of those accounts, we can see whether it be reserve fund or transfers, or maybe none, due to turnover or otherwise. Well, what additional funding might be needed for the fire department. There was a number of other expenses identified. Whether it be personnel contracts or what have you, I listed in the document. But that's like every fiscal year, it's never a perfect budget, and we try to sort of adapt as the fiscal year goes along. So, but the other amendment to the fiscal year 24 budget is actually what would be shown in the omnibus side, so not even within the article itself, which is just an additional subtraction of revenue and expenses. But Justin Marco has submitted a request to transfer $45,000 from highway into cemetery department. And that's to sort of compensate for hiring. Justin can talk to you a lot about hiring, as I'm sure you've heard in other departments or other towns and what have you. So he's trying to really sort of capitalize on his personnel structure from one division to another division. So not the heaviest FY24 budget.
Now, is there a problem that we already approved draft control E last meeting?
No, because
So this just replaces
you
what we
replace
approved
it.
last.
Right. So thank you for bringing that up, and that was also an error from me. Right, this is the prepared article as opposed to what we saw. So separately, there's the HVAC system replacement, which was submitted by the school committee. I believe the school committee had submitted a previous version, but it was a little more flexible in its funding sources. At a finance committee, it was discussed that the school committee had authorized Natasha Rivera to submit article, and so Natasha submitted a revised article that does identify the capital stabilization to be transferred to pay for HVAC repairs. And then
Just so we're clear,
yeah.
There's two articles here.
Yeah, it's not the top one.
It's not the top one, it's the bottom one, right? So it's SC sponsored article, not draft control.
Oh, so sorry for that confusion, but you're right, it's more updated.
So it's specific to the capital stabilization fund.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I appreciate Natasha's receptiveness to those recommendations. And there's $408,000 in the capital stabilization account right now. And we contribute to it regularly through cash. And this is the last time. What's that?
Last time meeting. We cut part of the free cash allocation to the capital stabilization.
Did we not contribute anything?
$25,000.
Sure. Well, this is now coming, now we're using it.
Okay, has the capital committee weighed in or been informed of this?
I keep them informed anytime I submit any materials to financial, so primarily the budget subcommittee. I also include those members of the capital committee. But this is not, no, we're beyond their scope for providing recommendations. But
So they had to make a plan, and we're taking from the capital stabilization fund, so definitely make.
Yeah, I think
they're able to account that.
Yep, absolutely. And then Justin can speak to it, but as Greg Wilson was just explaining, I get the last article was the sort of clarification on the easements.
Yeah, so if you have the map in front of you, so Free Street down Fletcher, Heights Terrace. With Heights Terrace, the actual paved road as it lies now is over 2 parcels. So the developer actually paved all these parcels. Well, the developer also created an easement to do so, but never followed through with legal easement documentation. In order for the town to accept the road and then actually commit paving, we will need an easement agreement with 2 abutting residents on Heights Terrace. With that being said, that's also one of the reasons that I bring up, there's not always a guarantee that we'll have accepted at town meeting. We'll discuss, I've already reached out to both of the parcel owners well in advance of the requirement and asking a lot to kind of go over what that looks like. That means as we were approached by some of these residents in the past for the need for acceptance road and what they're looking for in regards to town adoption of that process. Some of these things will consistently come about as we continue to approach the unaccepted roads problem that we have in the town of Maynard. It's also one of the reasons most likely that they were never accepted. As you'll hear me say quite often, we as a town were failed by many subdivision developers as a whole. That is the reason we have 40 unaccepted roads, which literally is about 25% of the roadways in the town of Maynard, because of follow the process from the subdivision approval at planning board into what the developers requirements were to follow through. So we may consistently run into hurdles of different aspects such as this. If this isn't something that we can't do, isn't something that can be accepted, isn't something that the residents in the budding approvals won't allow. It's just one of those things that should be anticipated and the potential no. And if that's a no, then we would adjust and figure it all out. So just keep it with
So. Why just the two parcels? I'm sure you explained technically, just through the research, we discovered two were left that we had to.
Yep, so what ends up happening is a subdivision plan is actually documented, approved, and then given to the registry of deeds. And the plan is approved as such, so we can only necessarily take the roadway as it was planned. You hear paper road a lot, as it was planned, and if you look at the plan and you'll see the meets and bounds, you'll actually see the roadway not follow that. One, the developer cheaped out, so they had a plan, but then they decided not to build a road on the road layout. So the easement is how they skirted that, and usually when developers own the entirety of the subdivision, they just create the easement for themselves, and then they flip it and sell it. And they typically fool homeowners who don't really know that much about it, and then they walk away. And this is what happens a lot in a lot of the subdivisions within Maynard that we're addressing, 50, 75 years later. So they never documented the easement properly, but again, it's not a town road, so it wasn't a major concern. So technically, right now, that meant nothing to the town because the road is not a road. So as we move forward with eminent domain taking, so we're doing, we are only taking the actual paper road, but we need an easement to actually pave their portion of the road, or we have a road to know.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the three items under the draft control?
Just an observation, and I think it's maybe for next. Or at some point. So there's like 3 things that are labeled draft control F here that are 3 different things. And so I just want to make sure that when obviously we know what we're voting on because we know what we're approving, but at the same time, I don't know as if the residents would know because there's a whole bunch. So I don't know if maybe we can just rename it when we're like when it's supporting documents or something like that, just maybe rename it so it doesn't. It just kind of, I'm looking at it here and I just want to double.
Someone like to make a motion?
Before we do, Chris, I am just concerned about the citizens petition. And, when we approved the article last week, we did so, last meeting. We did so with the understanding citizens petitions go as long as they're approved or whatever. But I expressed concern at that time about the way that it indicated use of free cash in the future. And I pointed out during my comments that, there have been years in the past, thankfully it hasn't happened recently, but Maynard was in negative free cash.
Right.
And this article as presented and supported, I think, that commentary was supported by Lisa Mead's observation, not only about the process we have for budgeting, which is somewhat subverted by the petitioner's request, but it's also somewhat potentially fiscally irresponsible on the part of the town to move forward with an article that ties our hands in the future. And I think that we as a board need to consider how we present potential commentary on that issue
Okay.
for town meeting. And of course, it's up to the board, but this is just my thought process. Because I really think it's a dangerous potential. It's a hot button issue. People are passionate about it. It's an important issue we want to address. But I think the approach that's being used with this particular article is dangerous fiscal.
Yeah, especially as in Lisa Mead's note, she notes that the substance of the petition does not comply with the charter budget process. So that would put us on a bind if it was to come.
Although legally, she says, the article itself is sound, but the devil's in the details, and the details of the article are not consistent with our fiscal policies, and it could really cause some serious problems down the road if we're obligated to do certain things.
So what is the final wording then? I like read Lisa Mead's entire email in terms of if this article were to pass, is it non-binding or is it binding in some sort of capacity?
I agree. I don't think she was as solid in her advisement to that. I think she says both, that it's a legally acceptable article to put on town meeting, but that it can't be abided by because it's not in accordance with the charter. And it's not a citizen petition to amend the charter to allow for this action. So we can't do it because the charter says we can't do it. But it's legally
certain way. All right, so
I don't know.
certainly the town meeting could vote to amend its own budget. We're doing that in a previous article, correct?
Yeah.
All right, now. So why couldn't a citizen's petition approved by town meeting do the same thing?
It's free cash, it's not a.
But let's, I agree, because the free cashing is a challenge, but in general, if the citizen's petition came up and wanted to say, take $5 out of the department and put it in that department, and town meeting approved
It
it,
couldn't do that, yes.
it could not do that.
It can do that.
It can do that,
but
okay.
With,
Alright.
but when it's free cash, it's not a guaranteed funding.
So I think it's also confusing as to even what amount of free cash you're talking about, because it says to vote free cash in FY 24. So I don't know if my free cash is for FY.
I think that's.
So, right, and so that's actually a good also, like, the charter doesn't say that you can. Unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe the charter says, it speaks to projections, but it doesn't say like appropriate fiscal years out.
So first year citizens petition projecting to hit next year's free cash allocation, the one we just allocated.
I think.
It said to expend free cash, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
To expend free cash, I think, comma, starting in FY, comma,
Which
Every-
would be the free cash we just allocated.
yes, because, no.
We've done that, but we've done this before, where we've accepted a citizen's petition and it's gone on the warrants,
Yeah.
knowing that
Yeah, it happens a
we
lot.
can't follow through on.
Right.
It can be approved and that, I guess, if it's approved, it says to to the people in the room, whatever, this is something the town wants, that's a whole separate issue.
Yeah.
But legally, we can't do what the article is asking us to do.
I think either way, I'm gonna follow with Lisa.
But the language, it seems like she's saying the language within the petition is legitimate, it meets the criteria. But the after effects, right, that doesn't meet the charter requirements. So you can't do it.
I would translate that as similar to not legally binding.
So was there any conversation between the people presenting the petition and the town to address these issues before they submitted it?
So the lead petitioners I met with them in my office. They had asked me about free cash. I explained to them how free cash is unexpended but collected. Funding from the year before, certified by Department of Revenue after you post your books. And that in the town of Maynard, in accordance with our town charters. Prescribe budget development, free cash is first considered for recommendation by the capital planning committee. Then, which is submitted through capital improvement plan to the town administrator. Who then takes or leaves it and submits a budget to the select board. So in other words, to sort of like circumvent that through saying, this is how you're gonna spend free cash. Is not in accordance with the charter. It is unknown, but you're appropriating an unknown amount because we don't have a certified budget. So I had sort of outlined those concepts. But my understanding is, after that, they can still pursue this as a petition, having the signatures and submit it to the town persons. So I can't speak to what their understanding was based on my conversation with them. But to your question, yes, I had sort of conveyed it.
Natasha, do you have a question? Comment?
Yes. Oh, hi. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
This was actually going back to what Jeff had asked about the HVAC article, so I don't want to sidestep. But just to add about the Capscom, John Larkin has received the article, and he was at the last budget subcommittee meeting where it was discussed. So just to confirm that, so he is in the loop and is aware, and he actually provided some guidance or clarification that HVAC has already been on their radar, and he has worked with the school department or had some initial conversations last year. This came up, so we're keeping him updated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Going back to the free cash. Article, so I assume we can't over allocate FY 24 free cash, but I assume let's just take away the future years for this. If somebody said, I'm gonna add $5 to 2024, that's already allocated, you can't add $5.
Right, we've already appropriated FY.
Right.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
can't,
we
they would have
appropriated FY 22 money in FY 23.
but it says beginning with FY 24.
Yep.
So does that mean beginning with the appropriations of FY 24? Now I see what Jeff's saying. So is it we just appropriated for FY 24?
We didn't though. So we appropriated, so in May, we appropriated FY 22 money to be spent in FY 23. You can spend free cash the day after town meeting. So you're actually spending in FY 23.
But we're in FY 24 now.
Now we are. So now what I'm thinking this means is, because we've already appropriated, I don't know FY 23 free cash yet to go to town meeting typically in May.
FY 24.
Right, I don't know what that amount is.
So by your definition, this doesn't even start for another year. Beginning in FY 24.
That's one way I
Yeah.
read it, yes. Beginning with FY 24.
The other thing is that some up to $120,000 a year.
Right,
So, I mean, you could say $5. And you would meet them. I mean, I'm not saying that we do that, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, in theory, it's not saying, that it's actually not saying to appropriate $120,000.
yeah, that's true, but correct. Even that would not be even a part, but this also implies. So I don't even know what the lease, so to do a lease, we still have to do impression proposal, so that this, who knows how much that costs.
Okay.
Part of the objection in council is based on it being capital, but I think the request is operational. Am I mistaken here?
I would agree. So on the one hand, the lease is more often considered operational because you have a contractual agreement to a different party in that. However, we've done lease to own capital. So we did the ambulance. That is not unheard of, and the capital planning committee has considered.
This is lease to own, this is lease to.
Correct, this would not be ours. So like at the end of 5 years, whatever the lease term is, not ours.
So to go on to further with that, if you did consider it operating, then that is definitely something that should not be funded from free cash, because you don't fund operating budgets through free cash.
You typically do that.
Lord.
So I will follow up with,
Can we get two $35,000 buckets of money to do the study?
I'll follow up with town, that's true. I'll follow up with town council to see, to get some clarity about what.
All right, so this.
We knew that bucket of money was coming from the state.
Make sure it's clear that this is, the way the petitioner just put it is not a capital request. So I think that that's part of the argument. There may be a different argument along the lines of what Christine just said, but.
Right. All right, any other comments on E, F, and I?
Also, one other question is the, sorry, Chris, I know we need to get out of here.
No, I'm just.
So the
I'm
Main
just
Street
following
easements draft,
Proposed roadway
listed.
easements?
Oh, I was gonna bring that up in the next,
oh, okay, it's listed under,
I'm not asking you to accept it, so I was gonna bring it up under, I think I put it in both sections. But my little explanation, I think is the one that
Okay,
might be wrong.
The 115 easement?
Yeah.
oh, there's one. Oh, you put a lot more in here. When did you do that?
Oh, late this afternoon.
I was paying attention to the building committee meeting, by the way.
He was.
Multitasking.
He'd go right in under the wire too. But, yeah, so
Okay, so back to.
that's a whole different issue,
I'll explain
right?
that in a minute.
Back
Alright.
to, I will move to accept the following draft controls. E, amend the town general fund budget fiscal year 2024. F, transfer from state capital stabilization for HVAC system replacement at the Fowler School. And I, proposed roadway easements as shown and forward to the finance committee for review and comment.
Second.
All right, any further comments, questions, concerns? All those in favor? All right. Now, on to the next, Greg,
So
lead us
yeah,
through this.
with those, we've already been working towards. In anticipation of you accepting those articles, Claire Wilson's done a fantastic job of collecting all the draft. The latest drafts and putting them into a version of the warrant. And having a dialogue with town moderator Dick Downey as to the sequence of those articles. And then, and the sort of voting requirements that goes with them. But the warrant is pretty fluid until kind of right up to the wire, so we still don't have. All, if any, I don't even know how many, finance committee recommendations, finance committee sponsor comments. Maybe there's math or whatever we're gonna put in there. I need to update the omnibus budget, which goes in the back. So there's always some tweaking to do, but now that the board has accepted the articles. You know, the rest of it's gonna come together pretty quick. Again, sort of pending the receipt from the finance committee in particular. So here's a catch. I was notified this afternoon, through town staff in cooperation with town council. That the development of 115 Main Street by the McDonald Development Corporation. Is meant to have both. A provision which allows for access through the public way behind CBS and the rail trail to get into the underground parking proposed in McDonald plan. And the sort of, the balance to that is the public easement along the left side if you're on Main Street facing the building to go along the river to get from the Main Street parking lot to the river. Which has always been sort of like the concept and in all the renderings, so it's like really nice comment on the side. So, so it's meant to kind of go hand in hand, like, you know, it's give and take. What the town staff is not aware of is that, you know, being an easement, there is the advice from town council that it needs to go to town meeting for the town to go. It's the taking, the town is taking this sort of like, ownership, if you will, from a private entity, in this case, McDonald Development, for that trail between the two, which does require town meeting vote for an easement. And so I only just got this draft article this afternoon. And if we wanted to consider this, I'm having a conversation with Chris Silva earlier. I want to know what the board's feelings were to consider accepting that article this evening, or as a sort of alternative plan, to consider a special select board meeting tentatively on Tuesdays, because that's when we do the meeting usually, Tuesdays, we can do by Zoom. To accept this warrant article into the warrant. Catch is, Greg Wilson and I have talked about, we want to get that, we're planning on having that warrant ready to go to action unlimited the morning of 13th, which starts. So it's a big ask. That's down staff. So we all know it's a big ask. But there's a lot to consider. I know the board has always been trying to be receptive to development and sort of like economic, growth and progress. However, the board, I think, is also tries to be very thoughtful into how it accepts items onto its agendas, how to, what special circumstances where the board sort of consider special meetings and additions and changes this late in the game. So if it's not on this special town meeting, this topic, then it would go in spring. The Gotham Development has met their obligations to be eligible for a certificate of occupancy in this regards. They provided a draft access agreement. However, just having a certificate of occupancy, there's probably other requirements needed to get that CO. And when are they actually going to start building the project and actually start? I can't speak to that. So even if this particular easement is put off to the spring, how much is that going to set the back? I'm not sure. So it's a lot to think about, and it all kind of came in.
Bill Nemser, has the planning board approved all the changes with the underground parking and everything else that was previously in dispute or done without authority or whatever it had to have?
Was what?
Did they approve the
They
underground
approved
parking?
Underground parking.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's all set.
Yeah, all the planning board has approved the special permit. They approved the site plan. So that is all,
Including the underground parking, which
Including
my understanding was there was a need for the special permit because the underground parking was not included in the original application.
yes, it was all done.
Yeah.
It was amended,
Oh.
right, that's right. The planning board had conditioned the final approval of the plan on acceptance of the accesses through the municipal parking lot. And then, as we said, the acceptance of the easement on the town would take responsibility for the problem. What
Will there be occupancy by April of next year or May of next year when this would come up for?
I don't think so,
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
but.
He goes fast.
Mhm.
Once he starts going, he goes.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't, once he starts building, he builds. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not inconceivable that he would be ready to put people in that building.
Oh,
soon as
he has
that.
to have, he hasn't even, I'm not, I don't.
Yeah,
He has the basement built, but
I think, yeah, just because of the nature of the project and the history with it. This really caught us by surprise, the need for a town meeting. This, and none of us were aware of this, and we spoke to council today. And
Well, the only part that is a surprise is that it has to be approved by town meeting.
yeah,
The fact that we are gonna vote at some point to allow him to gain access to our property down to get under. And the following vote to take this easements. Those two things are not a surprise. The only thing that's a surprise is that it's town meeting,
yes,
because the underground parking or not, that easement to the, as you look from the street to the left of the building between that and John's Cleaners and the water was always part of the plan.
correct.
oh, yes, oh, yes.
So this, I mean, I know we don't like to accept things and deliberate on them the first time we see them, but really, this isn't the first time we've seen this. It's been part of the plan from day one.
That's correct. This is just the process was a little bit. Because we've got multiple documents going around now, we've got a development agreement, we've got a decision, from the planning board, we've got now an easement. It would be nice to just get everything done.
Well, we're gonna have to do it regardless, whether it's in this meeting or in the spring. And it's gonna be the same thing regardless. I wouldn't think there's anything changing, so move it forward tonight, given that there's no. It's not gonna change.
My concern with that is that, because it is a lengthy decision, lengthy development agreement. I'm concerned that it could influence or impact, the applicant obtaining building permits, certain phases. This is.
Well, that's why we're gonna move it tonight. I think that's what David,
David-
so if we
If
do
we-
it tonight, that means that he'd be able to.
Yeah, so
We're saying, David's saying, we're saying we move it tonight. Not delay it,
So
because
that
you're
way-
saying,
You
if
seem
we
to
delay
say
it, it seems
we
that
might
could,
get
that
an
could
advantage.
create some of the problems that you've been hearing about him,
Correct, yes.
you know, his noise.
I'm sorry. I
But
misunderstood.
yeah, I don't, you know, if we, for one, I don't know why. You know, why we would delay it, because it's not a surprise if this is something, the only surprise is that we ended up needing to get. Town meeting approval to do it, the rest of it is, we knew it was coming, yeah,
So you don't think by approving it here, it takes away any negotiating advantage of the planning board or of the town down the road?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no, that's done. Pretty much, I think.
Not on a development agreement or anything like that.
It's done.
This is
Yes.
already part of the plan.
Yeah, it is.
It's not even part of the plan that was recently discussed by the planning board.
That side of the
Or
room,
an-
that side of the room can get the information to us on time. Is I think what happened, but,
pretty quick call.
okay,
No, I
yeah,
have-
you move to the other side. But anyway, so anyway, it's, everything's done, this is just part of it, and the only thing we really, the only surprise in it is that we were told, oh, you're gonna get that approved at town meeting. And that's,
Yeah,
so I don't know what the question is.
what's the risk? Right.
That's what Bill's trying to point out, so, which is one of the questions I had.
What's the risk of going forward?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Oh, apologize. One is, we only got this, I only got this literally a couple hours ago, and maybe even less than that, from Lisa Me, town council, who submitted this article. I assume it's correct, right? She gave it to me, even though I have not read it and sort of internalized it, I assume it's correct. I don't have sponsor comments yet, so we'd have to draft that as well. I just didn't want to assume that the board would be comfortable accepting this tonight. So if there's little risk, admittedly. Because this is all part of the plan, so to speak. I just didn't know if the board would want to even talk about it.
Thank you.
Well, and that's conversation was that we don't typically do it, but it's not really new. It's not really new, it's just a little different.
The concept is not, I mean, I remember before he tore it down, right there was that rendering that he had on the front side and it included like the tree.
Yeah.
and the whatever.
So I guess it's up to the
So if you
board,
like-
if anybody wants to make a motion for it, we can.
What I think you should do, Mr. Chair, is actually, in fact, we accept the article. So you just accepted 3 articles in the item before. So you'd have to accept this new article. You can call it promenade easement at 115 day. And then separately accept the
The
warrant.
warrant, okay, so does anybody want to make a motion to accept the promenade easements? Article,
Do we have a number for it?
No. I would call
What
it-
would be the next sequential? Where were we?
Okay, thanks, Greg.
J?
Yes.
Okay, I will move to accept.
Before we do this, which specific document am I looking at? I've got about 20.
I think it's that,
Look at
Yeah.
the bottom
article,
one.
To see if the town, all right.
it's,
David, could you just title the motion according to the PDF that has the text? So
Yeah,
it's very
there's
clear.
an article 115, acceptance of grant of easements.
Perfect, thank you.
To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to accept an easement from Donald Development. You see that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll call that Article 115, even though it's Article J. So I'll move to accept and approve Article 115, acceptance of grant of easement as presented.
Second.
And to rename it Article J.
Second.
Aye. Okay, any further questions on Article J? Having no further questions, all those in favor?
Alright,
Okay,
but that has not been included in the draft warrant. So if, so my recommendation, Mr. Chair, is that the motion is to approve the warrant for the annual town meeting 2023.
To
with the
include
addition
Article
of
J.
Article J.
okay, so
So moved.
do we have a second?
Second.
So I'm just gonna tell you, I'm not gonna vote for this. I'm gonna vote against it because I haven't had a chance to review the draft article because we just got it at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And I can't approve something that I just got.
The evening.
No, the whole draft warrant, the whole warrant. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I haven't had a chance to look at
which is fair.
it. So for that reason, I also didn't sign the signature.
Well, so, okay, that's fine. Do we need to then? I don't know if anyone else has the same issues or has the same issue.
It's the only constituent article, except for the easement we just discussed. Right.
We just haven't seen them in, we
We
have
just
not
haven't
seen them,
seen an actual.
we haven't seen them
form
in
of it. We
warrant
haven't,
form.
normally we see a warrant and we didn't see a warrant. At all. Until 2 o'clock.
The preference would be to have it before Friday for the select board packet.
Correct, or, yes, on Friday for the cycle, so you can review it,
I
right?
understand what.
So,
And I
so
mean,
none of us have seen it until today, and I don't know who's seen it or not seen it before this evening, so do we wanna? Do we need to do a meeting next week to approve the whole warrant? Give people, or, well. When's, yeah, I mean, it would make sense to do it next Monday or Tuesday. And then you have it, then you'll still have time to get it ready for the 13th.
My comment would be, each and every article that's in the warrant, we have previously seen and approved. If there's concerns about typos or whatever, that's perfectly understandable. But I don't know, yeah. I was gonna say, if it's a non-substantive typo with a comma in the wrong spot or a word that's wrong, that's could be corrected. But, I don't know what's gonna be there, so I understand the concern.
And in looking at this warrant, the question I have is, has Dick responded to the question of moving anything around?
Only for the, yes, about swapping, the order of the easements and the road unacceptable. In relation to its stairs question.
So my,
He is not.
well, no, the question is, I know that there was a letter correspondence, which, seeking to move. Move the citizens petition to the beginning of the meeting. And I see it's still number 4 after the, after the school question. I just didn't know if if he had heard about that or not.
Well, I forwarded to Dick, I don't recall getting guidance from Dick, unless I'm wrong, unless Greg, you recall.
I haven't gotten any.
Right, so. The numbers that we're looking at, right, page 5, article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in order. The easement article will be, I guess, 9, but there has been no discussion about moving anything from Dick to an earlier time. And
Not
if it was
that-
gonna happen, it would have to happen by the 13th.
Or
unless you
now,
want
we
to take
go
it out of
for it.
order at the meeting.
Yeah, that's right. So like, or if the board says that this is the
Yeah.
or whatever.
Okay.
Somebody could always make that move to the town meeting anyway, right?
Yeah, someone could.
Do we want to have it independent of? Do we as a select board want to have it before? Or earlier in the order?
I think it's fine where it is.
I leave it up to the moderator to determine where he
It's
wants to.
his job.
Yeah, I
Good
mean,
meeting.
honestly, I think it's kind of, you'd hear the same thing from,
If,
you'd hear the same thing from the proponents of the school. To say that there are gonna be a lot of people there who want to vote for the school and they've got young kids and they. Want to get home and they don't want to have to wait too long, so.
we're not gonna win that argument
you
either
can-
way.
But I'm saying, so you're
I
gonna,
agree.
they can make an argument for either, so honestly, I'd say leave it up to the moderator and he'll let us know what he has decided.
Okay, is there anybody in favor of meeting next week? Monday or Tuesday to discuss this? Warrant or is everybody comfortable with the exception of Justine
I think there's a component.
doing it tonight?
I think there's I'm going back to the ordering as opposed to the time of the meeting, very good, but I think there are a number of seniors who want to know the outcome before voting on school article. And putting it earlier in the warrant gives them that opportunity
But I think,
and could increase passage of the school article. If they see that citizens petition, even if it's non-binding and taken as a even if it's non-binding, it's certainly taken as a recommendation or an indication of the town's support for the senior population.
I don't believe it's our role to tell the moderator how to run his meeting.
Well, we set the warrant.
We accept the warrant and move it forward, but we don't tell the moderator how to run his meeting and what order to put the items.
So does he do it? Does he number the article or do we number the article?
So we provide a control like J, A through whatever,
Right.
then we submit it to Dick, then he comes back saying, wait, this is the. Here's how it wants to look like, he gives that, and I forget how it's set up, but like basically how the votes are gonna look, set agenda, et cetera.
But as far as the actual warrant itself, like, so you have draft control, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Who decides that draft A is this, draft B is this, draft C is this, draft D is this? I think that's what you're, right?
I'm thinking for Greg, you can probably. But we have draft A is usually just in the order of receipt, so. Whatever period of time we get it, that's, you just call it A. And then, but after we get it back from Dick, and then Greg puts it into the basic table of contents. If Dick doesn't want it A, B, C, and D, if he wants it C, D, A, but anyways, then that's.
So it is his decision.
Right. Yeah. We just probably, and again, like, it's because he considers. The type of vote and the timing of how long it takes to get, the baskets to go back and forth from the back of the hall to the front. He considers how long he thinks the deliberation may take. So. Right.
But my opinion is that moving the free cash citizens petition article up to the front in accordance with the petitioner's request increases the chance that the school passes, and that's of value to the town. So if we can find a way to do that, I think that would be a good idea.
Is that a reasonable assumption? I mean, could it go both ways?
It is speculation.
Right.
It's,
Yes.
yeah,
It could go both ways.
You're correct.
I don't. The other issue you might is, which. I think some people's point is, oh, when as soon as your article is over, you up and leave. Some people, so you lose potential votes if that's first and someone wants to go home, because that's all they came for. Cause you see that in every meeting too. But it's more Dick's decision than our decision, to be honest, so. I mean, we can certainly relay that thought to Dick, and Dick has the correspondence, and he has the letter and the email from Peg Brown with some signatures attached to it requesting, so we'll send it to him.
What I'm understanding is it's really our decision since we approved the printing of the warrant, but respectively, we wouldn't want to overrule the opinions of the town moderator who has the expertise of running the town meeting.
So this grid that we see in front of us, without a particular order, was sent to him, and this is the order he sent back for his preference. Correct?
Yes.
So that's his preference as a town moderator, who was the person charged with running the meeting. It's his meeting, basically, I mean, to run, and this is what he suggested. So I mean, we can send to him a note and say, hey, you know, what's your thought on this? And if he comes back and says, I like it the way it is, then that's the way it is. You know, I mean, for all intents and purposes. I don't necessarily disagree that, you know, that, you know, if Group A was to meet the favor of the votes, that might lead them to vote in a particular way for the school. I get it, but I don't know that Dick's thinking that way, you know, I don't know what's driving Dick's thoughts, you know, so.
Well, Dick's not supposed to be political about it relative to how he thinks it's going to affect votes, but rather his decision should be how he thinks the meeting will run best. And
I don't know what he decided to put it in the order that we put it, but. I don't know.
I've got a sense that one of with the challenge of the current wording of the citizens petition and the bind that it could be putting the town on, it would be a level of confusion, potential confusion before the school issue. Which could kind of set a tone which maybe is not favorable to the school. But it's guessing, second guessing. And again, I would back up Chris, what you're saying, that it's, you know, we defer to Dick.
I mean, I don't have a problem, you know, sending Dick a note and saying, hey,
Yeah.
it's been several people have asked about this, and the people who filed the petition have requested, and I don't know, I'm assuming he already knows all that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's already got that information, and this is what he said. This is his response.
So this grid was after Dick had incorporated the feedback from the petition.
I'm fairly certain, but when I will get these things, I feed it all.
That's another matter.
I'm not gonna try to figure out what some people are thinking. But I don't know, I mean, do we want to wait until next week, or do we want to? You know,
I think, you know, we talk a lot about setting precedent too, having citizens petitions come to the town. And then allowing the citizens petitioner to dictate, or at least make requests on how that affects the meeting. Now, with all due respect, it's setting precedent for the future, because the next time that somebody has a citizens petition, I want mine to go first. And it becomes, it's the moderator's decision. You know, the charter says the moderator shall be the presiding officer of the town meeting and regulate its proceedings. And what is more important in regulating its proceedings than setting its order?
Yeah, I don't think they're dictating. I think we're having a conversation right now about it, so there we go.
So you know, do you guys want to, does anybody want to make a motion to accept this tonight, or do we want to push this off into a separate meeting? I'm okay either way. Yeah, I'm okay with the thought that we have pretty much seen all these articles and had a chance to deliberate on the ones we want to deliberate on. And the rest of it is really just cut and pasted language from prior warrants into this, but.
I feel the same way.
So it's out there, if anybody wants to make a motion. If not, we'll.
How do you feel, Mike?
Yeah, I'm inclined to go to.
Huh?
I mean,
We have the votes.
I don't have the So
Yeah, it's all moved to.
know whether, where the potential pitfalls of moving ahead are, but most of
We just haven't voted yet, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if we had voted a second.
I
Okay.
derailed that part.
No.
That's just.
It gets seconded and.
All right, so
I'll move to approve.
we already did. We already did. So any further questions or comments about the acceptance of the warrant itself? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Thank you all. And all right, now we're on to our performance recognition, Greg. But we're gonna. I thought we agreed to push this off till May.
Oh, did you?
Not,
I think you were gonna.
Oh, I thought this was a result of that discussion. You guys had,
I thought we were just,
Can.
well, I didn't think we were gonna rush to do something because it's only 3 weeks, 4 weeks away and.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna wait and put it to May.
Our last instruction was to do exactly what staff has done and made an effort to put this on, so.
That's okay too. I could be wrong and my interpretation of it, which is fine. I can be corrected, but I'm fine either way. I don't know. Have you heard anything or seen anything? Or-
No, because I.
This hasn't gone anywhere yet, right?
No, it hasn't. So.
So I'm okay. You know, to try and do it. For this, for the special, I'm okay with
we had
it.
that discussion on the last meeting
We
where.
did, yeah.
Where I remember Natasha specifically saying from the school's perspective that. The school just started, you can't really make a recommendation on.
Yeah.
How somebody has performed in a fiscal year, and here we are 2 weeks into the school year, and. By the time town meeting comes, it's a month, and.
Okay.
My argument, which again, I made at the last meeting, two, in fact, is we initially had it for the annual town meeting and decided to push it to the special town meeting. So now we're just pushing it another full cycle out. And then the other thing we discussed when we pushed it for the annual town meeting is that there's generally fewer agenda items at the special town meeting in the fall, and therefore a better space to take the time to properly recognize our staff and volunteers. So those were the two reasons I thought the special town meeting was appropriate and that we could try to do it, and that's aligned with our conversation, both in advance of the annual town meeting this spring and from our last meeting.
So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with trying to get it for October. I don't, it's okay with me. I'm okay with that.
Did anyone have any questions about the application itself, the memo? It's not too complicated.
No.
Good, anyway, okay.
I'm okay with it. Does anybody want to make a motion in regards to the performance recognition memorandum?
I'll move to adopt the application policy and procedures for a performance recognition program for drafted memorandum in preparation for the special town meeting October 10th, 2023.
Second.
Any further conversation? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay,
You get that, Kurt?
all right. Goals,
Well, Mr. Chair, it's 10:05. You want to get it?
no, let's do the goals next. Let's get to the goals next week. Next time, we can get to the goals. Can we put the goals, we put the goals in there at the beginning next time, so we get to it? We'll just at least open these two documents and get the conversation started in earnest. So correspondence.
And I
Yeah, I
think,
just thought we'd see a draft or something of them doing, so.
I apologize for not including in my TA report with it, but it's been available online.
Okay.
And so now I've been in receipt of proposals and offered leasing bids, none of which are over the $50,000 threshold requiring some approval, so I'm trying to expedite the process. So I would say. And then lastly,
straight over Summer Street and you're coming out of Glendale, you're turning left or right and it's gonna grind it up. Unfortunately. But it's a great job. Captain Andy ran that ship. It looks good. I mean, I can't, I don't know. You see it, you see people, social media bitching and complaining about it. How can you complain about it? What's the complaint about?
I don't know.
I mean, it looks too nice. I mean,
Because it's art.
I don't know. It's crazy.
It's like,
So I guess that's, anything else, Greg?
Nope.
All right. My only thing is, only comment I have is, congratulations to Artspace and moving into their new facility. And then, following up on that. I know there's been a little bit of correspondence. Greg, about, Gail Irwin asking about what we're gonna do with that money that we've never taken possession of. But I would assume that there's an opinion from Lisa Mead as to what happens now, because the earmark was very specific that it was to be used in that building. And what happens now?
So actually, I felt like I did understand Lisa Mead's like direction to advise me that. So what I did is I sent an inquiry to, I don't know, just to kind of,
Okay, yeah.
I'm still getting focused on this. What do you guys want to do about it? So I got confirmation they got received of my request. This other one.
Okay. All they can do. Board reports, Jeff.
Nothing for me this week, thank you.
Okay, Justine?
Two questions. The first is, Greg, is there a way to get a copy of the RFP? Because the only way I can get it online is by being a plan holder.
I can send it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Second question?
And second question is, it kind of piggybacks on, I know that people have brought my attention to certain things on social media fairly recently, and one of the things is that Josh Morris is talking about ways that, and I think I actually saw something from someone else also, of ways to defray your taxes, abatements and things like that.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering, because I don't know how many residents who qualify actually file abatements. So, you know, I'm talking about the elderly and
Right,
someone like,
right.
so I'm wondering if maybe the board, I don't know if Council on Aging has a program yet, but would they be able to host like a workshop of, you know, either a member of the Board of Assessors and maybe Rick Ladd, or maybe just Rick Ladd either, to be able to present to them, to give them, you know, an idea of what they would have to do to qualify, or what would qualify. So that way more people can take advantage of it. If they're, I just think it, you know, it kind of ends up being kind of a big picture thing that people don't know how to take advantage of. So if we can help them, I'd love to be able to do that.
I will verify this, but my recollection was that there is some sort of like tax guidance that's provided through the Council on Aging, but I'll verify what it is. It doesn't touch things.
We used to use the same qualifications, and maybe things are different, but for when we had senior water districts. And very few, when we went to that program, actually, first off, applied.
Right.
But beyond that, the requirements, what you submit, is very invasive to a lot of people relative to personal information and everything else, so they were hesitant to do it. So it reduced the number of people who actually applied for the benefit. And the other question I would have is if every senior out there applied to have an extension on their taxes, how do you fill the hole?
Well, it obviously comes on the backs of everybody else. That's the way.
So,
No, not necessarily. I mean, I'm curious what the data would show if this was built. So we do set aside the overlay surplus of $300,000 with the expectation that there is gonna be a certain amount of vacancies that's offered. And we don't always spend down that 240, which allows for, but anyways, I guess it's a good question.
but these usually are in abatements. These are people who are putting off the way it's described. You put off your taxes until you die.
That's a whole other thing. That's a whole other, that's a whole other
different.
scheme.
That's what I think, I'm different, I'm thinking differently than you. But
And then there are others who can get a discount on their taxes
Right.
because they have income
Not abatement.
restrictions.
Right.
That's very limited number of people that qualify for
Yeah.
that. But you can fall into this category where you write up an estate plan and everything else that allows you to put off, and that costs money, and it also then puts a burden onto the other taxpayer.
Yeah,
And if people are being encouraged to go for that, well, the rest of the taxpayer has to understand what the impact is on them when it comes time for tax impact on this type of an increase.
yeah, essentially, I mean, I'm curious if you, like, presumably the value of their property is not maybe as great as like a new household or renovated household, like, there's some sort of like means that's going on, not take that. But anyway, I can find out, as I said, I believe there is some sort of like tax improvement programs, but I'll find out.
David,
I'm good.
Mike,
Just one light note to finish off. I met somebody the other day at the farmer's market who moved to Maynard a few years ago because she watched that movie, Knives Out. Apparently she saw Maynard. I'm not sure if she actually ended up being confused with Marlborough and Natick that also there, but when she saw the credits, she said, I'm moving to Maynard.
he wasn't Jamie Lee
So,
Curtis, was it?
one little tiny bit of benefit from that movie.
Is it-
Yeah.
Was it the primary, the filming of that, a spoiler? In a particular
That
scene
one
itself, in a particular basement, of which building does no longer exist.
Right, yeah.
So,
That's crazy.
So anyway, just an amusing little.
Yeah.
That's interesting though.
Rob, maybe these guys who are online with us tonight will,
Anybody want to make a new motion?
yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor? September 19th is the next